start with my best friends. Eventually each means will reach its end. They're drinking on the couch, so I'm leaving any minute now. I guess I'm just more dividend than I present. 'Cause I just want to go to sleep and find some silence in my dreams. But I cannot rest though I feel weak. And I just want to go to bed and find some silence in my head. But my thoughts are bursting at the seams. Bedroom without sheets. Feed me your false pretense. Make me feel completely hammered, getting nailed, enamored with being frail in situations where false ends justified. But I just want to go to bed with someone who will not forget how I made them feel when we first met. And I just want to fall asleep beside someone who dreams of me, someone who will miss me when I'm dead.
Ladies, gents, and NBs, welcome to the inaugural stream for Postcard from Map. I'm Sponny, the host of Map, and joining us will be Quantum Vortex. So if you haven't been able to tell, this pool features a much more lax pooling approach. And rather than being completely anal about balance, we've curated a list of maps that covers everything from the historical influences of mapping today to the modern classics that are well regarded in the mapping community, and even styles that may completely populate the ranked section of the future. In this stream, we're going to be guiding you from the the birth of Osu and the mapping styles of the past to present-day Osu and where today's mapping styles are heading, maybe while learning a thing or two about mapping fundamentals along the way. So let's begin where Osu first initially started off, with the birth of the very first mapping style, INIS. INIS refers to the developers of the games and
the Elite Agents are at your service.
With Oindan only being released in Japan in 2005 and Elite Beat Agents being released internationally in 2006. These games have a very specific recognizable style that is followed throughout all the levels in the game, and the INIS style is named after the developers of the games INIS, which heavily influenced the first beat maps made for Osu with this kind of style they had for all their levels.
This story is literally just these two girls bouncing their in front of a bunch of animals. Why is there implied bestiality?
Which leads us to the first map in our chart, DT1. Don't Stop Me Now. Mapped in 2008, the map as a whole was made to mimic a level you'd typically see in Elite Beat Agents, from both the style of mapping, the hit sounding, and the storyboard. The style has this hard focus on Y-axis symmetry and these linear patterns. You can see these exact stylistic choices in Elite Beat Agents and pretty much every other beat map made in 2008. The storyboard of Don't Stop Me Now is also inspired by the stories told in the levels in the original games and can display either a success or a failure, based on how well you're playing, which was a really cool gimmick and a technical feat at the time in 2008. Outside of the match, you should try playing it with your background dim low. It's a really cool throwback. So the next style on our chart is post-INIS. This era signifies a major milestone in mapping evolution where mappers started experimenting with different structural techniques, such as less reliance on cross-screen symmetry and more active rhythm choices. Let me explain the differences with our next map, DT2, being the butterfly effect that is Bad Apple. So this was mapped by James in 2009 and was the very first ranked Bad Apple map. James is basically the poster boy for a mapping world without INIS. What he did was reject center-based symmetrical patterning and was the first person to focus more on the idea of patterning spacing across the playfield, also known as flow. He also rejected a set distance spacing as a mandatory requirement when patterning, as seen in the INIS styles before him, instead opting to let spacing change in accordance with the song and his whims, also known as emphasis. Of course, with how limiting the editor was at this time and how new these ideas were, it's not outstanding from a modern point of view, but for 2009, this was completely unique and special. Special enough for a lot of other mappers from this era to then copy it, which created the feedback loop of what we saw after this era. I mean, here's a side-by-side of another map mapped from this same year. I'm sure you can tell the difference. Bad Apple was essentially the start of a brand new mapping movement in Osu. So James's vision was further realized by Happy 30 that same year, who refined it with better execution of what were simple ideas at play at that time. Happy then went on to break the traditional conventions and overcame the limitations of this era with the Old Russian style. So the Old Russian style popped out around 2009 to 2010 and was refined over the next few years. It incorporates simple, barely curved sliders, as this was done because high curvature was practically impossible to manage before proper 3-point sliders, and utilizes geometric shapes and connections as an integral part of the style. The style also typically used 1.4 times slider velocity, since at the time only 3 SV options existed in the editor, and featured complex hit sounding as a core element that added to the music rather than just representing it. This was a key differentiator from the other styles of this era. The Old Russian style also emphasized sounds on slider tails, used spacing emphasis based on song intensity rather than individual sounds, and featured improvised rhythm, or more commonly known as additive rhythm. This style was fostered by an early Russian community that developed these techniques partly due to language barriers, creating almost like a closed-off learning environment where Russian mappers would only learn from other Russian mappers. This context created a style that has had the biggest influence on almost all subsequent mapping styles. Notably, the style wasn't limited to Russian mappers even in its origins. It was popularized by Russians but adopted by mappers worldwide. The beauty of these maps lies in the simplicity of their ideas, patterning that requires a surprisingly deft hand to execute effectively. Back to Happy 30 though, who essentially kickstarted the style, his works went on to inspire mappers like Teef, who inspired Nadake, who inspired La Cataline, who mapped the next map in our chart, DT3. World End Dominator, a map that has had its many inspired spin-offs as of late, but it's very popular for a reason. The map's elegance is hard to properly appreciate without perspective. The one thing you need to keep in mind is that this was mapped in 2012, when maps similar in quality were really hard to come by. Like, immediately when you open this map, its aesthetic is clear as day. It's simple, barely curved, mostly parallel sliders spaced out equally to the eye. It still bears the marks of an older work, mostly in its rhythm and how it doesn't seem to just stick to the song, jutting out occasionally in a way that may trip up modern audiences. And then you see this. What the fuck? This patterning makes me feel like I'm looking at something that was mapped a decade from now. Like, if I was you watching this right now and I wasn't familiar with this map, I would have thought someone snuck that patterning in there just to throw people off. Like, here's a modern vanilla map for reference. Like, the patterning looks so similar. Now here's a map from that same era. I hope that puts it into perspective. Like, man, every hit-object relation is crystal clear, the rhythm is a perfect accompaniment to the song, and you can see just an absolute greatness in this patterning that was unparalleled at that time. This same realization is what a lot of experienced mappers see when they look at this section of the map. Of course, the map still shows its age at times, like the occasional how do I pronounce that?
Bezier.
The occasional Bezier slider, which was the only available slider anchor method available at that time, or odd pattern placement prominent enough to be noticed, but never enough to distract you from the otherwise incredibly ahead of its time experience before you. A beat map absolutely worth playing and studying to those who haven't done so yet. Now, only slightly further south of La Cataline was China. Now, following the break from INIS-styled maps in 2009, a new style emerged from mostly Chinese mappers. And like Russia, China had developed its own mapping scene, somewhat inspired by the architects of those early days like James and DJ Pop.
That's not what it looks like in-game, but it's so funny in the editor.
But with their own in there too, like Dari, Alice, and more. These mappers would lay down the foundations for what we now call the Old Chinese style. This early scene of Chinese style innovated patterning by placing greater focus on visuals. And like Russian mapping, Chinese mapping developed partly due to language barriers, with Chinese mappers learning primarily from other Chinese mappers. The Chinese mappers of this era developed many modern mapping techniques still used today, including inventing the modern usage of the quarter slider, and the very first beat map ever created being mapped by a Chinese mapper. Many mapping innovations from before 2011 that are still used today originated from Chinese mappers. A difference from the early Russian style during the same time was that, unlike the safe, clean nature of early Russian style mapping, the early Chinese style was a much more edgier style that broke from traditional conventions. This was also paired with a taste for much more improvised and unique active rhythm choices, like in our next map, Hard Rock 1. Basara, mapped by 100PA in 2010, represents the pinnacle of what early Chinese mapping could achieve. This map became legendary in the Chinese mapping community for introducing a completely revolutionary concept: thinking about time in mapping. Most mappers focus on what's going on right now in the music, like what sound is playing, what rhythm to use at that moment, but 100PA thought about how the entire song flows over time as a whole. This is called horizontal thinking versus vertical thinking. What makes 100PA's achievement even more remarkable is that he wasn't even that experienced as a mapper. You can see mapping mistakes like here. Notice how in this section there's no problems with the stacks, and then we move on to the next section, and then I don't know what happened here. And yet somehow he created one of the most sophisticated approaches to pattern development ever seen at the time. There's a reason why every old Chinese mapper basically worships this guy. 100PA uses something that most mappers never think about: anticipation and foreshadowing. His patterns don't just react to the music, they predict where it's going. He uses extremely simple patterns, but that simplicity is the power. Simple patterns create expectations, like when you see a triangle or a linear pattern, your brain automatically thinks, how long is this going to continue? When will it be built upon in the map? How will it be built upon? And then he answers those questions through the music itself. This pattern mirrors into this pattern. But watch when it changes. Right here. The pattern breaks exactly where there's a chord change in the music. That's a form of horizontal thinking. He's thinking multiple patterns ahead, setting up expectations so that when the music changes, the visual change feels inevitable. Here's another example of this forward thinking. Listen to what's happening. So this first half here ends with these two notes, which matches a lower note in the melody. I'll play it again for you. But here's the second half. It ends with a stream, and it's doing this because the lower note in the melody is on a higher pitch. Listen to it again without the hit sounds. Compared to this. And because it's on a higher note, it's demanding more tension, and this is how he's doing it. He understands this, so he uses gameplay patterns that create more physical attention for the player to mimic what the music is doing. He also pioneered a bridging technique. Same movement patterns, same spacing, same angle, but in a different position. It's change, but it's also not change. He acknowledges that the music is transitioning while keeping you connected to what came before. This became one of his signature mapping techniques, just like here. And although these are curved, that doesn't mean that it's not doing the same thing, just angled differently. These objects create a bridge between two different sections, creating smooth transitions instead of jarring cuts between two different points of the song. But the most genius section of Basara comes from this point here, and it goes on for a minute. I'm gonna let this play, and then I'm gonna give you a 20-minute quiz about what makes this map good. I hope you're ready for it. I've turned down the hit sound volumes so you can actually hear and understand what Basara is representing here. Pretty much the rest of the map, apart from this section, follows the shamisen in the background, and if you don't know what that is, here's what it looks and sounds like. But in this section, he completely changes approach. Instead of following an instrument, he becomes a drummer, adding his own rhythmic interpretation. This was a revolutionary use of additive rhythm. And look how he uses this change. The additive section is so sparse with lots of empty space. It's completely symmetrical using, basic geometric patterns. Then look at this. everything explodes back into density and freeform. The shamisen returns, patterns become asymmetrical, and the map travels all over the screen. That contrast is what makes both sections feel extreme. By mapping the middle section more symmetrical and sparse, the dense, free-flowing parts feel more free. It's like dynamic range in music. The quiet parts make the loud parts feel louder. And the ending showcases his mastery of pattern subdivision. Like, compare these two musical phrases, with this divided into one half and this divided into the other half, you know, left and right, to this. One continuous spiral. The first pattern subdivides the phrase because there's more music coming. Your brain expects continuation. The second pattern treats it as one complete thought because the song is about to end. Even the visual organization of this map tells you about its future. And the crazy part about all of this is the fact that he figured this all out intuitively. All this sophisticated musical understanding just came naturally to him. Basara became the template that every subsequent Chinese mapper studied, establishing improvised rhythm as a cornerstone of Chinese mapping philosophy and proving that mapping could think as deeply about music as any classical composer. And now that we understand China's affinity for unique rhythm, we can look at our second map from this era, Blue Amber. So, hi guys, it's Sponny here from the live booth with Quantum. What I haven't mentioned is the fact that about a day or two before the stream was meant to go up, Premiere Pro basically said, you know what, I'm gonna get rid of all of the files you've recorded and make them all go corrupt. So, we're gonna leave you with about 20% of the video. Which basically means I'm going to have to edit this video later and publish it, and we're going to do the rest of it live on stream with Quantum. In map fashion, it couldn't get any better. It's like the curse follows us even outside of this tournament. Look,
God hates us both equally.
I hope you're all doing all right. I hope you've been enjoying the video so far, and we do plan on releasing this later. It might just take more time than we anticipated because yeah, this stuff happens. There isn't a lot that we can control about this, but whatever. Look, let's start off with where we left off with Blue Amber. Let me just pull it up now. And I want to pull it up in the editor. Quantum, get off my mouse. Quantum, get off.
Okay, sorry.
Quantum, get off my mouse. Sorry. Quantum is currently connected to my computer using Parsec, so it's gonna be scuffed, but whatever. Look, we have Blue Amber here. Now, the thing about Blue Amber is, let me just play this as I talk. Actually, that might be better. That is so incredibly loud. Oh my god. Okay, look, Blue Amber is a really special map because, well, here's a little backstory to this guy, right? So, Upari, if you go to this map right now, and you look at their profile, you will see that this person has only 30 minutes of playtime, and immediately immediately uploaded this beat map, got like one medal, and then left. And no one has ever seen or heard from him since. So this guy is a literal ghost mapper and nobody knows where he's from. I'll go a little bit more into depth of this in the video, but essentially, there's a little lost media thing going on here with this map, but regardless, this map is awesome. It is absolutely incredible. I'm just trying to go down in my script because I've still got it up. Yeah, Blue Amber, it represents the logical evolution of Chinese mapping's experimental spirit. And, you know, with Basara showing us, you know, sophisticated planning ahead and developing patterns as the map goes along, Blue Amber shows pure intuitive genius. Instead of horizontal thinking, it's vertical thinking at its best, putting attention to the patterns that happen immediately at that time and just having them all play incredibly well. One thing I do want to mention is this map was made in 2012, and it is one of the first maps with a playfield gimmick. What a playfield gimmick means is that basically it's using the playfield and the area along the playfield as a gimmick to build the map. And this is one of the first maps to ever do it. It does this thing where, you know, it starts off, if I can grab it, it starts off not only just using the left side of the screen, but it has this visual spacing around objects as well, along the top, along the bottom, and along the middle, and going around the whatever, right? And then it goes on to the right side, right here, if I can get it again. And it completely removes that, like, that concept it had about the visual spacing and just lets it go freeform along the screen. And then when the map and the song opens up to the chorus, the whole map opens up and you can feel it as you play. It's one of the first maps to ever do something like this, and my god, it is so fun to play when you like feel claustrophobic as you're playing it, and then the chorus comes in. It's amazing. Connor, what do you want to say?
I just want to clarify that this probably isn't the first time a playfield gimmick has ever existed. It's probably been done before
in a good map.
I don't think it's been executed
ranked,
to this level.
Yeah,
before.
And that's entirely the point. It's one of the things that makes this map so absolutely incredible. It's one of the earliest rank ones. I seriously don't know any other major like ranked map that had this kind of gimmick after the INIS style kind of exploded on itself. But, you know.
You could probably find like a gimmick map or something like that that has it, but it wasn't common in like serious B maps, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. I want to talk about, just like how Chinese mapping, it has a lot of rhythmic interpretations and a lot of additive rhythm experimentation that they do throughout this old era. This map definitely follows through with that. Like, you can, if you play the map, you don't really get it, but if you look at it in the editor, you can understand it a little bit better. What it does is it's constantly floating in and out of what active rhythm it wants to represent. Like, at some point, you think it's going for the drums, and then it goes for the vocals immediately after the drums. Some people might think that this is not how you're supposed to do active rhythm. It's fine. It's more like a kind of a natural, instinctual thing about what you want to represent at the time. The thing about maps during this era, though, and especially around 2012, is the fact that not a lot of these maps were experimental in their rhythm. They usually followed just the drums, or they usually followed just the vocals. I mean, in the Chinese style, of course, they were more experimental, but in other styles, they most definitely weren't as much. And this map just kind of floats in and out of existence. It's like you're floating on a cloud. Like you're following the drums here, and then you go to this contact with the vocals. You stop the momentum with this linear momentum, immediately stop, and then you get this hard curve and stop, like a movement stop back down when the vocals kick in. And then the vocals here as well. It's a lot harder to do, and that's the whole point. Rather than, if you were a mapper at this old time, you could probably just very quickly get away with just representing the drums, but this is a lot harder to do, and the fact that it was just accomplished and executed so well during this time is incredible. Do you want to tag in, Quantum, or do you want me to continue?
I feel like we should move on to some of the future sections.
Oh, I'm not even done.
You're not?
I could continue. I could go on for so long, honestly.
We don't have that much time. We have half an hour.
If the people who play the people who are playing in the pool can leave, I'll wish you goodbye when that happens, but, you know, for the people who aren't, there's a lot of people in chat who aren't actually playing this, because obviously they had their own tryouts, so we should be good with that. Okay. Regardless, I do want to mention, just like the playfield gimmick section here, each section in the map has its own kind of gimmick in its patterning. It's all kind of semi-different, and if you play the map, you might even notice it. Like, immediately after this big linear circle section, you get these overlaps. This is a brand new visual idea that they added into the map just to represent this kind of difference in the song. And that's really creative, especially for this time. It immediately plays different with repeating stuff. And it just works so well with the song, and then immediately after the main break, you get this one section which kind of has its, like, salute to INIS in a way. It was only a few years ago, so it kind of makes sense, but the thing I want to talk about with this map is just how beautifully it is structured. And in a way, like, obviously you can kind of tell that it's an older map just with the way that, like, the curves look and the way sliders look. But if it wasn't for that, I think I would honestly struggle being able to tell if this was a more modern map with modern structure, because of just how everything's oriented. Everything has such a tight attention to detail in organization, visually. And that's what most maps have now, unless you're talking freeform. But back here, there was not really a lot of other maps that had this much visual organization. Everything evenly spaced out, everything interacting with each other like this. It's just, you know, normal stuff you'd usually see in a map. Everything evenly spaced, you know. The basics now, but not back then.
Well, in my opinion, I think there was organization on this level. You know, like your Lesjas.
Yeah, with the occasional,
maybe,
like the Russians, and we'll go back to the Russian style very soon, where we will actually talk about the organization. But it's more so for the people outside of the Russian sphere, in the China sphere specifically, where it wasn't this organized, or just anyone else outside of those two boxes. Because there were people, but they're people that we will be talking about, or the eras we will be talking about.
Yeah, later. But I think for this specific style, I think you're correct. Like, this is like some of the best execution I've seen on it by far.
Mm-hmm. From a ghost mapper as well. That's the craziest part. There's theories. There are theories.
Some people say it's LKS. All I'm saying is check out weibo.com/Yukari.
I'm not sure if we're allowed to do that.
That's all I'm saying.
But whatever.
We're not allowed to go to Weibo? What the fuck?
Who knows? I don't know. Look, okay. Moving on, and I thought we were going to go back to the Russian section now, but no, we're actually going to go to the innovators section. And oh my god, I just realized we need some music. What am I doing when we don't have a map on? We need to get some music up. We're gonna go to innovators now, and if you guys pull up the chart, which is currently pinned in the Twitch channel, we'll be able to go through with it together. So in the innovators section, you know, these particular individuals, it's kind of difficult to pin a group of people down in any real specific group, because a lot of these people stand out so much from the rest of the crowd. This is the 2012 to 2014 era of, like, some of the most well-known and influential mappers of all time, you know, either from their unique mapping styles or their unparalleled capabilities, or even just the sheer impact that they had on the mapping scene at that time. And what I might actually do is have Anhedonia playing while I talk.
These mappers are so popular, you guys could probably name them.
Yeah, guys, guess who made this map? You won't ever be able to guess.
Oh, is it
Come on, Conan. Come on, you got this. You got this.
It's so familiar. Is it
Okay, that's enough. You're dragging this on for too long. Look, a lot of these people, RLC, Skystar, they drew influence from previous forward-thinking mappers like... How do I pronounce Nadagal Canon? Did I pronounce that name?
Just say DKSSLQJ.
DKSSLKJ. I'm sure you guys in chat are aware of this mapper. Look, in any case...
He's the guy who made Freedom Dive.
Oh my god, I forgot about that! I always remember their other name, that's the issue. Jesus. Look, we've got them... And LKS especially, we just had a map from theirs. I mean, what? RLC, Skystar, a lot of these people that you'll see in our chart, they took these ideas and built on them in defining ways that shaped all of the mapping that you see today. They pioneered like an absolutely revolutionary mapping philosophy that emphasized intuitive approaches over strict existing rules. Like, RLC, for instance, in an interview with Pishy, he said that he always let intuition guide rather than following normal conventions that were seen at that time, with grid spacing and a lot of the distance snapping stuff that mappers did during this era.
But we should also make clear that this intuition isn't just whatever you feel. It's based on studying and like actually understanding things and then using your intuition. That's what makes the difference between a new mapper and a mapper who's actually good.
Definitely, yeah. Look, speaking of RLC, what we're going to do is now look at our Hard Rock 2, and if I can remember the name, Quantum, what was the name?
Playing with Fire.
Playing with Fire, how can I forget it? Look, Playing with Fire, it is one of the maps of all time. I think I need to talk about RLC though, just a little bit, because I know a lot of people in our chat don't actually know who RLC is, especially. So, let me give you a little bit of a rundown. RLC, he basically represents like the most influential mapper in Osu history, and I say that with a lot of confidence because his style is the most copied style of all time. As soon as he started making these maps, he made, the Pretender, everyone knows the Pretender, he made this map, he made Anhedonia. When he made these maps, everybody started copying his style. Pretty much, like, shortly after all these maps were made, a lot of the maps you saw ranked after this had RLC's little influence in it that you can pinpoint a lot of the time. In most cases. And starting in late 2011, RLC was drawn, he apparently said in an interview, he was drawn to mapping out of just a general curiosity, like when, Geometry Dash players, they stumble into the game, like the level editor, and they're like, wow, this is pretty neat. But he specifically mentions that Osu's editor is very easily accessible, but it goes as deep as anyone chooses to explore. And I find that I kind of agree with that. Like, I don't think there's any other kind of rhythm game level editor, even in Osu, like the other game modes, I don't think there's any other level editor that is as expressive and has as much theory and as much, like, history as the normal Osu standard game mode has for its mapping. Where his RLC's approach basically came from his fundamental shifts. As I said earlier, if rules prevented him from creating something that felt right to him with the music, then the rules had to go. And this basically represented a seismic change in mapping philosophy at that time, from following established systems to trusting musical intuition. And his style was derived heavily from the guy who made Freedom Dive, the really old one that Kakizi HDHR'd. He always talked up Nakagawa Canon a lot whenever he was interviewed. And in this map specifically, in Playing with Fire, look, Quantum, I think you can just take over and talk about this. You know a lot more about RLC than I do, honestly.
Okay, so I think
you have control over my computer.
Yep, I've got that. I just need to make sure I'm fully aware of everything. So what's the most important about RLC is that he heavily inspired by Nakagawa Canon, and the most important thing Nakagawa did was create a visual language that RLC really just took and like expanded and carried from beginning to end. And he's got lots of signature techniques that are fully on display. I mean, everything is a pattern. Like, you get the symmetry into a square, and then it's just dicing through it, and then into another shape. Geometry is just a really powerful tool when it comes to patterning. Like, it's a very easy way of communicating to the human brain, like, oh, these things are in the same group together because there's a shape. And I recognize the shape because I'm a human with a brain. I have so many thoughts at once. It's confusing. But, it also, the other thing about RLC, which is just absurd about him, is that he's never stops being good at patterning throughout the whole map. From the beginning to the end, Like, you get patterns throughout that just blow your mind. Like, every single connection makes sense, while keeping the gameplay fun as well. You know, it's one thing to make a good-looking pattern. It's another one to make a good-looking pattern that's actually fun to play. And RC is able to do that extremely well. Oh, look at this pattern, man. Oh my god. And then the transition to that? Oh my god. Sometimes you just have to look at a map and look at the patterns and go, holy fucking shit, dude.
Whoa. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on 6WC, but we're in map, and this is a map stream, but I'm not sure if we're allowed to here.
We're not? Why?
I don't know. I'm only assuming. Chat, don't tell anyone, alright?
Yeah, hopefully mom's not home. Anyways. But, you know, the thing is, while these patterns, they look simple, you know, oh, it's just he put the slider next to each other and then between. It's not that simple. It never is that simple. There's like a degree of precision to it, like the spacing between everything is equal, and then making sure it goes to the next object fine without playing poorly would be the polite way to put it. But it's just it's this never-ending balance of different influences when you're mapping, and you really only get this once you're a mapper. But it is hard to do this. It is so incredibly hard to do this, and you really have to appreciate how RLC was doing this 10 years ago.
The first to ever do it. Mind you, I think we should clarify what year this was made. So I don't think we've said that yet.
Yeah, this was uploaded in 2014, but ranked in 2016.
So really it's a 2014 map.
Well, maybe. It might have been remapped. There's like another case of that later in the pool that we can explain.
Look. RLC, man. You all know him, everyone knows him, even players probably know him as a very influential guy. There's not a lot else we can add to it, everyone already knows. He is just the mapper of all time, guys, come on. Should we move on?
But before we move on, we should clarify that if you want to dive deeper,
if you want to what? Excuse me?
If you want to dive deeper into RLC's philosophy and approach, there's an interview on him on Pishyfat's channel. That's really important. And there's also more about his philosophy about following music in general in the same video. That also links to a full 30-minute interview. Great watch. Highly recommended.
Are we going to move on now?
Yeah, I think
guys,
it's time to move on.
Moving on to Skystar. I was going to write Anhedonia, but I'm going to do... Oh, crap. I'm on 2 hours of sleep. I'm trying to remember the bloody map names now. Come on, help me out, Connor, help me out.
It is our hidden 2 pick of the pool, Neuronesia.
Thank you. I was gonna write something else that sounds very similar, and I almost did. Look, do you want to talk about Skystar, or do you want me to?
You can start.
Alright, well, Skystar is a mapper who would, during this era of mapping, absolutely fundamentally change how the community thought about complexity in mapping, as RLC was a lot about mapping intuition and following music and just generalized patterning. Skystar's philosophy revolves more around musical representation, no matter how complex it is. He was remarkable not just for his mapping, but because he was one of the first few mappers to reach such a high degree of proficiency in pretty much all areas of the mapping skill set, whether it be modding, I'm not going to pull it up now, I might pull it up in the video, mapping, we all know his maps, and hit sounding and storyboarding. He did everything, absolutely everything himself, and it's wild to see someone in like this early on in 2014 do this kind of stuff. He'd already, he'd already proven himself to be this kind of premier mapping guy in the Chinese scene. Inspired by the likes of NKS, Natsume Rin, Knowles. But this map, Neuronesia, this map right here that we're looking at would mark the very beginning of something much larger, the birth of not just an entirely new approach to mapping, but the birth of tech. And what makes Skystar particularly fascinating as a person in our innovator category is his complete lack of a traditional musical background. While RLC, he had studied music before, Skystar didn't know a lick about music theory or a lick about how to play an instrument in general. And he's also done some interviews on Reddit. He explained that, and I quote, "Before I started playing Osu, I was never familiar with music or interested in it. For me, all the music-related stuff comes from the game." And it's like, it's this outsider perspective that might genuinely have been the reason he was able to think so differently about mapping than other people. His philosophy was at the time, and I'm going to quote this again from his interview, "A map has to fit the music, and that comes above all else." But his interpretation of fitting the music is unlike anything the community at this point had seen before, where, other mappers saw these complex songs and simplified them for playability, and I'm not even gonna lie, RLC did this a lot. Skystar is a person who embraced the complexity of any song that they mapped. And mind you, nobody would have tried to map a song as complex as this. Map it as complex as this, in general, as well. This was like the high SV usage, the way that patterns interact with each other. There's one crazy pattern that I'm trying to find, and I don't think I'm going to be able to. Nah, it's gone forever. Look, it's just like his commitment to variety was just, it's so legendary that like there was really like at this time, if you picked a bunch of maps from Skystar, would that be 2 maps? None of them are the same with each other at all. He has such a variance in his patterns and such a variance in his style that he just upped this interesting factor about his maps, when at the time, if he uploaded a new map, you would have no idea what it would look like. He is always trying something new visually for each map, or like conceptually, each map that he did at this time. And it's this map right here where he pretty much reached his peak expression. And yeah, it was considered one of the first tech maps ever made in the history of the game. This map, it wastes absolutely no time with this short intro before absolutely going into the tech section with these wub sounds, as he likes to call it. And this patterning and these like this approach to mapping technical songs that involve this high SV usage and just objects that wrapped around each other to create this kind of difficulty. No one's ever tried to express tech songs like this. I could talk about Unity. I'll explain Unity in the actual video, but this is a form of Unity, and Unity means basically how all the elements in a map connect together. And Skystar, one of the biggest things he understood was that each pattern needs purpose. And in such a delicate environment of, all of these intricate patterns in this especially difficult to map song, he just still managed to deliver such a fun and engaging map that's just so attentive to the music at all times. Because it's one thing to try and map a completely new style that no one's done before, but to execute it especially well is something that is just so unprecedented. We've also got another example of this with our TB, with Hollow Wings, and we'll get onto that in a bit, but this is just what's crazy about Skystar. We could have done a bunch of different Skystar maps, but obviously this is the one that invented tech. We went with this one. I could say the exact same thing about all Skystar maps. They all just, they are both conceptually new, and they're both they're never like each other, and yet they're always just executed so well. It's crazy. Honestly, do you want to add anything, Quantum?
If we could go to the beginning of the text section, I want to explain some of
You
the.
have control.
Yeah, all right. Sorry, forgot about that. What I want to talk about is how he achieves this unity. Because it's not, you can't just do it by accident. You have to put intent behind it, and that intent is relating objects together. Like, look, if I could drag, there we go. Look at this pattern. Like you've got the blanket of this slider shape by this big slider, and then these curves are continuing with each other, going this way, counteracting against the curve of this. It's just, and it also creates this form of symmetry where the very ends. Why the hell did it do that? Oh, distance snap. That's why. Anyways, so yeah, it also creates this somewhat symmetrical form with this small slider in the center and these being the edges. It is just beautiful, and these patterns are just everywhere. They're throughout the whole map. He just doesn't stop making them. Blankets are used so much in this map as well. They're not used as much nowadays because they're easy to make and they're regarded as like a somewhat simple relation to make nowadays. But back then, people weren't as experienced, and being able to use it this much, this often, and still creating something that's really just elegant in how it's made, while also making it still fun to play. Yeah. I mean, also, shout out the double section. This is actually organized really well.
That's a great, like, highlight this section, please.
Okay.
You can do it, you can do it. Yeah, you got it. It's just like, what the hell, man? What the hell?
It's the actual organizations themselves, and like sticking to each phrase of the music. And like, look, you think this is just going up and down, but it's also a star. Like, it's just throwing in little things like that when you don't need to. It's just an immense amount of effort and talent put into a single beat map. It's awesome. Skystar, one of the GOATs. Not much else to say.
Pretty much. Now, are we done? Are we done with Skystar? Is everyone in chat acquainted with Skystar? I hope we are. Everyone say yes if you're acquainted with Skystar. Yes? Alright, cool. Awesome. Everyone bust out the charts. We're going back to Russia. And by that, I mean we have one very, very special mapper. One mapper that I love dearly. One mapper that Quantum loves dearly, that we have so much inspiration from. And that's Evil Elvis. I had like about 1 million Evil Elvis maps in Map when I hosted it, and it's for a good reason. Evil Elvis is right up there with RLC as one of the most, like, copied and most studied mappers of all time. And I'm just trying to get the map up now. I'm trying to remember it. That's not the right one. Here it is. I only have one monitor, so I have to do it manually. Look. I'm sure I know a lot about Evil Elvis, but I think Quantum knows even more, and I'm gonna let him go. But I do want to briefly just talk about this modern era of the Russian style, and it's the mid 2010s. So we're in 2014, 2015 now. This is about the time where that old Russian style with La Cataline has matured and basically crystallized. A lot of this time when people were mapping Russian style in 2015, these old elements from like 2012, 2013, the Cataline era were considered old mapping. And a lot of people in the Russian community tried to move away from that, which is like this really fascinating evolution of what was an old style and everyone trying to move away from it. Like, the more modern, well-known definition of a Russian style that that you guys would recognize today is, like, it's kind of influenced by old Russian maps, but it bears only some of its core traits now. More than ever right now, it's about actually being mapped by Russians or people of Russian influence, like Mirage, Evil Elvis, Attendant, Semaphore, I'm sure like a lot of people would recognize these names, but whatever. This new modern style of Russian mapping, it still retained this visual language, like, you know, favoring these really simple slider shapes and whatever, and having a lot of the geometry, and if I skip to it, I might be able to find it, but there's just not a lot of jumps right now. You'll see a lot of the jumps in a lot of Evil Elvis maps are structured a lot around geometry, a lot more than that of other mappers. And as well, modern Russian mapping, it retains this tradition of rhythmic philosophy, like, you know, favoring overmapping specific areas just to make it feel a bit more interesting, and really going ham with the hit sounding. And oh my god, I can pull up an attendant map right now, but I'm not going to lose focus. Hit sounding is very, very important in this era of Russian mapping because it's kind of, in a way, it's thought as its own form of additive rhythm, but it's filling the void of sound rather than having anything tangible. It's a bit different from other styles, but yeah. It differed, here's the thing, it differed with SV usage, and I'm not sure if, yeah, here we go. So this was about the time where the editor finally let users set their own slider velocity, because if you remember in the video that played earlier in the stream, Russian mappers were limited to only using one, not Russian mappers, all mappers, but particularly in Russian mapping they embraced it. They were limited to only using 1.4 times slider velocity. But in this map, I have to change that now. In this map, we move past that because this is the point where they embrace the new functionality of the editor and let Russian mapping go wild, as it wanted to do before and as it definitely is able to now. There's this point where Russian maps suddenly went on from 1.4 times slider velocity to higher slider velocities, and it's like this noticeable bridge of old and new, and that's kind of cool. You can like look it up. Now, the mapper that we're looking at right now, Evil Elvis, also known by his many aliases like Jonzan, Narake Desu, get this guys, Pregnant Man, and Osu Map Man. Evil Elvis, he took these early influences from early Russian mappers and he expanded upon them in ways that still captivate players and especially mappers like today. He understood that you can preserve the philosophical core of old Russian mapping while embrace the technical possibilities that this now modern Osu editor allowed. What makes this evolution problematic though is, at this time, how the style has been interpreted by others, and as I said earlier, by the time, especially with Evil Elvis, Russian mapping got really widely recognized. That's when Russian mapping was then considered to be just made by Russians, and there's no other kind of subtext to that at all. A lot of mappers, a lot of players think that now, and a lot of people think that modern Russian style mappers often, you know, only adopt the surface level visual elements like the bent sliders, geometric shapes, whereas even big major popular Russian mappers, especially Marash, we're going to bring them up later, kind of went into their own free-formy direction. Fracture Hawkins, for instance. There's a lot more depth in modern Russian mapping than a lot of people realize. Look, it's one of the most important and influential styles in the game today, and it just shows like how mapping traditions have evolved while maintaining their essential character. Even today, like when you see a lot of these geometric patterns, and if I can find them, I'm actually not looking at my screen right now. Here we go. So a lot of geometric jumps and a lot of geometric patterns. You see these and you think that like, yeah, this is a Russian map. It's got like a lot of Russian fundamentals, but you look at these. I've lost my train of thought now. Oh my god, I need to go to bed. You see these geometric patterns and, you know, these slightly bent sliders, and you can't really see it now, but in a lot of these earlier sections, slightly bent sliders and stuff. You're witnessing this continuation of ideas that emerged from this first early Russian community, from La Cataline, from World End Dominator, and, you know, being the very clean and consistently well-executed style that it is today, it is absolutely no wonder that it is one of the most studied and most replicated styles of today, and the most respected. Quantum, take the lead. I'm done. I'm done with my Russian yap.
Okay, well, now we can actually talk about the beat map. And I don't think we said the name of the map. This is Foreground Eclipse Noble, mapped by Evil Elvis, the GOAT. He really started creating great maps in 2014, such as this one. And, you know, as Spawny said, it's covered in old Russian influence. You can see it all over the place. But, this is, like, refined. It's improved, in my opinion. Because, we're seeing bigger jump patterns, we're seeing more curved sliders, and we're just seeing a completion of structure. It feels like it's more advanced. It's like that one part of the Cataline map that we saw and we were like, oh my god, that part goes crazy. But it's the entire map. The entire map does that. It's absurd. Let me know when I can look at the beat map again.
Oh, I'm not. Sorry. 1 second. 2 hours I'm gonna put on that one. Alright. Stop. Sorry, really quickly, I have to stop. Everyone, it is now 10 o'clock. If you have a match, please attend your match. Don't forget it. And you're more than welcome to listen to the stream and this commentary, even if you're... I doubt a lot of people are interested in this now that it's not a fucking witty cut video. But we'll still be here when you come back, most likely. And this VOD will be up if you want to continue watching. This video that we've made will also be up as well, whether that be in 1 week or 2 weeks or... sometime later. It'll come out. I won't let it die on its hill. I won't let this get to me, but you know. Have fun in your match, good luck, and I hope you enjoy the maps. Anyways, Quantum, continue.
At the end of the VOD, we reveal who the new Pope is. We just killed the previous one.
Oh,
There's gonna
okay.
be new ones soon. Just so you guys know. Anyways, it really is Elvis's patterning mastery is what separates him from the previous crop. It's okay. Let me. It really is. Well, the song. It's you know it's got this good opening part, but then for a while it's like really slow, really languid, and Elvis matches that energy. You know, keeping things very simple, lots of linear relations, some interesting stuff. But nothing to make you go, oh my god. But then you hit this chorus. And it just unleashes. All of these patterns are beautiful. And then you just get patterns like this, which are... It's so simple on the surface, but to think of this and then act on it, it is brilliant. And then he just keeps doing it, pattern after pattern. And after this, you know, the song has its calm moments, but after that, the song just keeps going on, and Elvis keeps building on it. He, you know. There's obviously variety. You gotta have variety to keep things interesting. But all these linear jumps, just classic features. See, geometry everywhere. And then he subverts the square in order to create this linear jump and connect to the next thing, which is different. Oh my god. And then the song just keeps building and building until we reach these final parts, and it really is the ending where it goes wild, where you have this ultra big spacing, and you get these jumps at the end too. Like, these kind of jumps you see in Russian maps now all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if this is where they were from, because it just feels iconic. It's one of those things. But I'm sure he used it in other maps and all that.
It is iconic. This is 2014. This is like this is the earliest of the modern Russian mapping era. This is one of the first few maps that came out in it. And, you know, a lot of people say go and study RLC. You know what I say? I say go and study old Evil Elvis. Go and study old modern Russian. Because, my god, there is not a lot of good reference points for this amount of thought into structure and unity. Even in this map, there's so much progression in its jumps. It goes from these ideas that are slightly introduced in the first chorus to then the second chorus and the third chorus, building upon them, like with that massive jump section here, which is kind of hinted at in the earlier areas, but then lets it go all out with the spacing in the last section. You feel that as a player, but you need to realize that as a mapper. This is what really creates those fun maps to play. Anyways, is there anything else you want to say, Quantum?
The only thing that you really can do after a map like this is just enjoy the outro. You know, it's just the piano and the vocals, and it just lets you think about the map that's passed and just how wonderful it is and how you need to go into the editor and study it right now.
Study this map. Are you mapping right now? Are you making No Mod 1 customs? Study this map. Study it up right now. Do it. Close the stream. Study it. No, don't actually do that. We'll talk about more mapping now. Okay. Now we're going on to one of my favorite Russian maps of all time, and if you pull out the chart, we're going slightly below, we're going to Mirage. We're doing here. We're doing one of the maps of all time.
This is the first time jump.
Big time jump. We're now in 2018, I think, right?
Correct.
So let me talk about this, right? There's this one quote from a mapper that I've forgotten the name of that I absolutely love, and it says, "Every day I wake up and I cry because I will never be good as Mirage," and I completely agree. Like, oh my god, Mirage is a king of patterning. And look, Mirage's journey to becoming one of the most revered mappers in the Russian style, it didn't start with immediate genius. He started as an Evil Elvis clone. One of those mappers that looked at maps like Noble, and there was a period of time like 2015, 2016 where mappers studied a lot of old Evil Elvis and tried to replicate it. A lot of these mappers failed in doing so and failed in understanding the underlying elements of whether that be old Russian or the elements that Evil Elvis introduced that makes his maps amazing. But what he did is he started with this imitation, and then he built on it. He understood the fundamentals and then added his own elements to it. It's like, it's this imitation that gradually evolves into innovation, which is actually it's a really similar pathway that a lot of mappers nowadays actually go down. Look, I think I've covered all that. Yeah. This map pretty much represents Mirage's magnum opus from this era, and it's a map that perfectly captures the early Russian fundamentals, as, you know, Evil Elvis's refined approach, like, started on, and also his refined approach. It's this line that he followed and then added his own distinctive spin, being more awkward, being more freeformy. He has this signature style where, I know Quantum loves to call it the line, where it's this kind of like hard diff style distance snap thing with consistent spacing across. You can see this in pretty much all of his maps, but in this map, it serves an important purpose. I'm going to go into it later because I know Quantum doesn't know how to talk about this map, and I will. This map introduces a lot of more free form into the Russian style that wasn't there before. It was very geometry based. It was very to the rules of like mapping, not like, you know, RLC, not like Chinese mapping at this time, but very to the rules, but executed to the best it can. And when you usually introduce, if anyone, even today, introduces freeform to their maps, it is significantly harder to execute than a rule-based vanilla style. And it was even more harder to do during this era when not a lot of mappers were doing it as well. And it's just one of those cases where a mapper tries something new and it is just executed so incredibly well you just don't understand how they were able to do that without making mistakes along the way. What separates Mirage from like the countless Evil Elvis imitators is his mastery of deceptively simple movement. And there's a lot of movement in this map that I'm going to talk about. It's this deceptively simple movement executed with this surgical precision, and many mappers failed at copying the Evil Elvis style because they couldn't properly control what appears to be basic linear movement, and that refers to just any kind of movement that refers going in one straight line, less than 45-degree angles. Mirash's breakthrough innovation was understanding how to separate patterns along the y-axis. So, the y-axis, it's the line down the middle, and the x-axis, horizontal and vertical movement. And when a lot of mappers map, they think about that. They don't think about horizontal and vertical movement, patterns going up, patterns going up and down, patterns going left and right. They think about how things connect visually. They think about the unity. They think about the structure or geometry, any of these processes. But there's more things you can think about when you're making a map. And movement is one of those things you can think about. And a form of movement is this kind of up and down movement, left and right movement. Look, what Mirash does in this map is uses different forms of up and down movement and left and right movement, and has this contrast between them, which creates this brand new form of emphasis for different musical elements, whether that be vocals, whether that be instruments, whether that be drums. And look, what I'm gonna do is now take you down this path of analysis, and I need to find where my where my things are, because it was meant to be in the video, and oh no, the video is gone, so you're not gonna be able to see it. Let's start off here. One thing you're gonna notice here, I'm gonna overanalyze the shit out of this, but we can do it anyway. There's the x-axis movement here where it's going left to right. But then there's this gap in the vocals, and to accentuate that gap, you immediately go up and down in order to accentuate it. But they're not doing that just for that. They're doing this kind of double entendre, and I'm going to use that as a kind of saying here to represent this. You're introducing this left to right movement, then breaking it up immediately as a contrast. The player notices, and it's like you're creating this negative space with this movement. And you're going to wonder what happens here. Whether or not you're playing it, you notice it subconsciously. You won't notice it actively, but you do notice it subconsciously. And then you bring out the long vertical slider. Don't look at that. I'm trying to think of a way to describe this. It's a form of movement that foreshadows and builds anticipation. You have this negative space that you've created by introducing these contrasts in movement, and then you let the player achieve that climax of realizing what's going to be put there. That's just one example. There are many, many, many examples of this throughout the map. This is one of the most thoughtful maps, thoughtful jump maps I've ever seen. And here it is again. This vertical movement that creates this negative space and then goes back down. The one thing you should know is that this is all supporting the same movement. It's always going up and down, right? And that's the movement you're used to at this point. But then it breaks it up, goes up, and then it's a mix, right? That's not all though. Because not only are you separating it there, but I'm gonna go back down and look at these. Let's go here, right? We're going to talk about movement contrast, where you have the system where you're going up and down, up and down, up and down. Even this is going up and down, but then you break up that movement to let the new bar breathe from going up and down, then to going left and right over here. All of this is going left and right. And what you might notice is that this entire section, look at this, left and right movement, then we go to the up and down movement to support the new vocal phrase. And let me turn down the hit sound so you can hear this, right? New vocal phrase, up and down movement the whole time. And then you break it up on the new bar with left and right movement. It's just a new form of patterning. It's a new form of structure that not a lot of mappers actually think about. But there's more to this as well, right? There's so much visual organization in this map. Let's talk about this, right? In the chorus, up and down movement, and then to contrast it, left and right movement. But then you're still doing it, right? Up, left and right, then it's kind of doing the up hand movement as like the contrast with the. I sound schizophrenic right now, but there is a mythology to this, right? This is actually a callback to this pattern that happened here. And you as a player are going to notice this kind of stuff subconsciously. You might not notice it when you're playing it, but this map just feels more fun. When you're an editor, when you're a mapper, you think about why it feels more fun. And this is just one of the ways that Marash has successfully executed movement contrast. Like, look at this. You're building all of this, like, left and right momentum the whole time. And then you've got this part of the chorus and the vocals where it's, like, really, like, going at it. It's the vocal climax of the section. And then you do the up and down movement. You do the Y-axis movement immediately after all of this building up of left and right movement. Incredible. And you feel it. That's the most important part. You actually feel this kind of movement. There's one more form of movement that that Marash has done, and obviously before I go to that, I just want to say it just shows how in this map every hit object that Marash puts down has thought behind it. It's like there's 4 bars in each measure in a song, right? And you're letting the music breathe with the movement. You're getting the player to move along with the breathing motion of the song. That's something that you don't see a lot in modern maps today, and especially wasn't something that happened back in 2018. My god. But there is one more form of movement that I want to talk about. Pitch-based movement. RLC did it a little bit, but Marash does it a lot, and I'll show you this, right? What do you notice about this phrase? Just look at the movement and then think about how it represents the song, right? I'm going to spell it out to you because you might not notice it at first. Pitch-based movement. Think about it with the vocalist and then think about it with how the patterns are arranged in the map. You start off at this high place here. Do-do. Do-do. And then on this third part, it's this do-do. And it's rising in pitch and it's following that. It's rising up, going to this 4 part, which is following the vocals. And then it does the same thing. It rises, then the vocalist goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And then it's just breathing and moving with the song. And you feel it. You feel it. That's the biggest part. It doesn't have to always be like if a vocal's going up, you go up. It can also be a vocal's going up and the movement's going down. Just like this pattern here. Do-do. And you can see it. It's still going down when the vocals are going up. Same shit. Just, it's one of those really early conceptual things that nobody tried around here. Absolutely nobody does. And it's just, I'm not going to show every pattern. I'm really talking so much about this map. If you look at this map in the editor, you will see it. You will see all of this pitch-focused movement and movement contrast thrown around all of this map. It's just such a thoughtful map. Each object has its purpose and an extreme purpose to promote its movement. One of the best early movement maps ever made. Oh my god.
Wouldn't it just be better to play it?
Play the map. If you're not, even if you're not playing like, you know, today, if you want a warm-up map for your tryouts this week, play this bloody map. It's amazing. Same thing. You're all right. Let's talk about one more thing, right? I'm just trying to figure out. Whatever. There's so much more I can talk about with this map. We are really spending way too much time on this. I will definitely go into detail with it in the video. This map, just as Evil Elvis's previous map, Noble, was incredible to study for just general starting mappers who are trying to learn mapping, learn structure, learn unity and geometry. If you are a mapper who is quite experienced, you've got your fundamentals down, you've got your basic style down, you should study this map and just be inspired on what to do next with your AIM maps. Because even today, there are not a lot of maps that do this kind of movement and do this kind of song representation while also being an incredibly structured map that's completely organized. Quantum, are you gonna analyze the visuals of this or not?
No.
No.
They speak
All
for
right.
themselves.
Yep. I'm sure you all see it. Look. Okay. Marash is the goat. Marash is a king. What's next? Oh my god. You know what's next?
Conceptual mapping, baby. So
Oh my god.
you guys know what a concept
Guys.
is, right?
I'm sure we all know at this point what a concept is. We talked about China. China loves their concepts. Each map pretty much, like from late early China to like early modern China, each mapper tries pretty much to have their own main concept going into a map. Each map should follow a concept. And let me get my writing up now because I am so lost. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Quantum, do you want to take the lead or do you want me to talk about conceptual mapping?
I'll talk about conceptual mapping for a
Thank
little
God, because
bit.
I gotta piss.
Okay, you go do that.
You're in control.
So, alright, swag. Concept mapping isn't just... Well, honestly, it is just having an idea. You have an idea for what you want to do in a map, and then you go forth with it. For example, you hear a song with like certain sounds, and you're like, hey, every time there's a certain sound, I want the note to be in a certain place. Hollow Wings has actually already done that. But concepts are just ideas, and ideas in mapping are hard to come by because you only have so many things you can work with across a 2D plane with a bunch of objects. So coming up with unique ideas is difficult. And one thing about these concept maps is that you don't have to approach it from, like, finding a song and then think about the concept. We're just talking about Hollow Wings. Let's talk about Hollow Wings. She is incredibly important for the creative movements, for anything interesting to come out of mapping that isn't, like, purely structure-based. It is more about the ideas. And every single map she had an idea. Whether it was only horizontal or only vertical sliders, or it was like incredibly small circles and complex patterning, or as I said earlier, just having one circle in the same spot all the time, or those gigantic buzz sliders, or just having lots of fucking streams. Whatever it is, Hollow Wings is having ideas, and they're important because they're notable to the player. You play it, it's different from the other maps because it's got something interesting going on, and you're like, oh, this is interesting, this is fun, I like it. And it creates these memorable experiences that are good for the player to have. And Hollow Wings also had a unique approach to this, where instead of just finding a song and then coming up with the idea, like I mentioned earlier, she would come up with ideas first and then seek out songs.
I love this slider so much, dude. Oh, what a good slider. Alright, continue.
I like the one right after more. Anyway. Hollow Wings' conceptual approach created maps that went against generic mapping rules. And you know, that creates interesting stuff. And players are going to remember that. Like, you will probably remember this map by the name... Oh my god, I forgot the name. I just said you're gonna remember the name. I forgot the name. It's Kikoku Dokoku... no, it's not Shell. It's not Shell. We know it's not Shell. It's not Shell.
What, we're playing it? What do you mean? What?
Sorry, I got carried away.
Alright.
Anyways, concept mapping is all about the concept, and this concept, I think, is clear enough. Yeah, it is a banger! And the concept of this map is gigantic sliders all over the place. And this song is a perfect fit for it because it has those long-held vocals during the choruses, and even during the slow parts, it's got room for, you know, ideas like this. It's just the vocals that allow these very long, they're long-held sounds, and you need those kinds of sounds for an idea like this to work. And God, does this idea work well. I think one thing that keeps this map, it's one thing to just have an idea and go, I'm just gonna make some big sliders and just put them all over the place and see how it goes. You can't just do that. You need a level of expertise in executing the idea. Like, these are interesting sliders, but they still feel in place. They don't feel like they come out of nowhere. One, because the song builds up to them properly, and like each of these choruses really stands out, and you want those ideas to stand out within your map as well, because map represents song and all that jazz. But another thing, like a very subtle thing that you might not notice, is that during the slow parts, all these sliders, they have like a similar feel. Like it's usually like a red anchor in there and some very slight curves in between that define how they're made. Like you can see it during these parts, lots of red anchors and little curves. But then when the big sliders hit, they're made from the same parts. It's slight curves, lots of red anchors, and so it feels familiar. It makes them
Once
feel
again,
like they belong as well.
Progression is the word, and the fact that HoloWings was able to do that in a map to this amount of caliber, how do you even begin to think about how I've got this idea of doing this crazy high SV thing that no one's ever done before. How am I going to introduce this concept in the verses? And they do it. They actually do it. They introduce the little thematic visual elements that make up the bigger sliders later on in the verses and get the player accustomed to it before she whips it out completely. And it's like, this is what separates this concept from being like a really interesting concept no one's ever done at the time to being an actually incredible map, because they were somehow able to have this as the big shouting message of the map and have it littered in hints and littered in subtle foreshadowing that this is going to happen later in the choruses, just from the visual nature of how they set up the verses. Not a lot of people when they look at this map, they look at the choruses, but really you've also got to be looking at the verses. It is a really good example of how to show progression in such a heavy conceptual map. Anyways, continue, Quantum.
Yeah, and progression isn't the only reason that everything feels in place. It's about the actual execution of these ideas as well. What ties everything together in this map, visually speaking, is that there are moments of clarity, moments of structure in between the giant sliders, but even the giant sliders are aesthetically clear. They're usually blanketing each other or just finding some way to relate to themselves, usually not crossing over each other, and you get like all these like close relations, and like this is essentially just a giant blanket, but it's also a really good way of relating these sliders and keeping the visuals of it clean as well, which it establishes an aesthetic and it sticks to it throughout the whole map, and that consistency matters.
Because it's not only the fact that he introduced this map as a first done concept that no one's ever done before, but he set the sorry, HoloWings is a woman, right?
I believe so.
She set she set the benchmark of how to do these kinds of maps, because not only did she introduce that, yes, I can do a map with 3.1 times slider velocity and have the verses, I'm not sure if you can see this on the stream, but have the verses not only 3.1, but where is it? Give me one. 1.5 to 2 times slider velocity on top of 3.1. This is when, slider velocity in the editor was only just allowed to be as big as you want it to be. And not only did, she made the map and she showed what could be done with it, but she set the benchmark in showing how it can be visually organized and related to each other. That's a 2-in-1. That usually takes one mapper to say, hey, look, you can do this kind of thing with your maps, and then another mapper or a bunch of other mappers copying that same concept and trying to add their own little things to it or add their own other forms of how to organize it better. But HoloWings did it all in one. This is what you can do, and this is how you can do it well. This is the very first of its kind of high SV tech.
I dispute that, but
done well.
Is it fair to call it a tech map?
Yes. Well, no, it's slider aim. Okay, clarifying, high SV slider aim.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like to call tech any form of slider aim tech in my mind, but you know, whatever.
That's fair.
I only hosted a tournament. Have we gone over everything here? Guys, the song, where's my notes on this? The song. This all connects to the song. These slider paths and the storyboard create these paths of fire, you know, across the playfield, directly representing the song's hell theme. It is a song about hell. Oh my god. Wow. Song representation, guys. Come on. Look.
Yep. We
good?
We love when the song's represented.
We done? I hope you enjoy our tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Guys, Disco Dumb Surfer. You guys all know the map. Everyone knows the map. But do you know how good of a map this is? In the wildest way possible. A lot of mappers, they actually say this map. Well, let me talk about Disco first, right? Disco is another conceptual mapper. Western conceptual mapper, not nearly to the degree of HoloWings, but they still like to have general concepts in their maps whenever they make them. Disco, as a mapper though, not like Chinese mappers, Disco focuses a lot on visual structure and structure in general. And this map, it pretty much represents what the what the mapping community calls one of the only well-executed low AR gimmick maps in existence. And what does well-executed mean? That can literally just mean its structure, its unity, how everything connects to each other. Because all in all, it is a low AR gimmick map at the end of the day, but when a lot of these maps are made, they're usually made as, like, you know, tournament customs. They're usually made not for the purpose of mapping and not for, like, making a good map that you're proud of, but to fill out that ecosystem in tournaments that usually aren't really filled out in general. Not a lot of people make these kinds of maps. Disco, on the other hand, he made this not because of a tournament. He made this out of his own free will. And usually what that means is that he put a lot of effort into how the whole map is organized. And you know, the concept here is creating a reading challenge that is actually fun to play. I don't know if you guys find it fun to play. I find it bloody fun to play. I know Ryan loves this map as well. Look, the reason why low AR maps fail on the mapping side is usually because they prioritize their actual difficulty, from a tournament perspective, over playability and over how the map looks and feels in the editor. But Disco also understood something crucial about conceptual mapping. The concept must serve the player experience and not work against it. And, you know, Dom Surfer using this AR-15 combined with these really heavy overlapping patterns that are also very visually, structurally organized. Like crazy shit. They obviously test your balance and reading ability, but what makes this work is his mastery of progression, and progression being the concept we just talked about earlier with HoloWings. This map builds from the really, like, the stupidly simple stacked circles earlier on in the maps, in the verses, to more complex arrangements that really test you in a good way, not only from the player's perspective, not only from a skill set perspective, but also while connecting with the map and being a well-organized, well-executed map in general. And, you know, for a really monotonous song that this is, my god, Disco demonstrates that structural thinking can really create variety where the music doesn't naturally provide it. This is a concept that you're going to see in a lot of modern conceptual maps today, even in a lot of the different maps we have in our pool that we're going to get into later. Once again, I'm going to say it again. Creating variety where the music doesn't naturally provide it. That is, honestly, I think that's one of the biggest themes of modern mapping today. Right, Quantum?
In certain circles, yes.
In certain circles. And a lot of the maps the modern maps in our pool that is the big, like, underlying theme of all of our modern maps in our pool, pretty much. Maybe not Laughing makes it worse, but that's a different thing.
Yeah.
You know, where's that guitar solo? I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Look, it's these stacked bursts and like the spinner. Where's the spinner section? Oh my god, I gotta see that spinner section again, guys. It's like these kinds of sections, they keep players active during these otherwise really boring passages in the song. And like, let me go back to that final section again. Like, this final section, it's dramatic spacing. Like, it all serves to differentiate what could have been really repetitive sections throughout the whole map, and it's filling in that void. It's like early modern Russian mapping where, you know, they added a little bit of more additive rhythm, or they added more hit sounding to serve for an otherwise monotonous song. This is how you do it physically in a map, and you know,
Almost like it's additive aim.
wow, crazy, right? Look, this is conceptual mapping's practical side. It's proving that innovative ideas don't always have to be groundbreaking to be effective. Sometimes the most successful concept is just simply taking a traditionally poorly executed idea and just doing it right. That's what Dumb Surfer does. That was a quick one. Do you have anything else to add?
Not really. You said everything I really could say about it. It's just incredibly structured.
Great, because you're going to do the next one all by yourself.
Awesome. Before we move on to the next map, I just want to say that Arla's maps are improvised aim. Or additive aim.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell me what one of the maps are. I've completely forgotten.
Our next map is Hidden Free Cloyd's Industrial Nation. It's not that Cloyd owns an actual industrial nation. The song's just
Really?
called that. I just want to clarify.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Cloyd might be a name you recognize. He's inspired by other Chinese mappers like LKS and V2B. And his specialty is mapping in circle size fat. It's circle size 5, which this map is also. Now you may be wondering, what's the deal with mapping in CS5? What difference could that possibly make? But in reality, it does actually make a big difference, because you have to recalibrate how you think about spacing, how you think about your gameplay, how you think about patterning, how close everything has to be to make sense as a singular whole. And it can be really uncomfortable for some mappers because it gets them out of their comfort zone, which is why most mappers stick to around CS4, which is the average. You don't see that many maps going below it these days, which is kind of sad. More people need to experiment with it. But since 2014, Cloyd has been mapping in this tough environment, mostly making CS5 maps, and mostly mapping rhythm game songs as well, which usually feature like intense and heavy rhythm. Yeah, you can look into his earlier maps. They're mostly like rhythm game songs. And that's why I believe he's been able to handle this 6-minute marathon of drum and bass. I don't know if I would call it neurofunk, but it definitely is drum and bass. But featuring all of these active rhythms. Lots of active rhythms that you have to consider, like how to follow, when to follow. And Cloyd has the experience to deal with it incredibly well. The low spacing, but you know, it's lower spacing because it's CS5. You don't want to be thinking about the aim when playing this. Tapping is sometimes more important. You know, aim's still a factor all the time, obviously, but that low spacing can sometimes lead to, you know, if you're not an experienced mapper, you might see these like objects touching each other, and you go, hey, what's the problem with that? Well, usually mappers are trying to avoid those, unless they're like disregarding it entirely, because what this communicates in most cases is that you didn't have enough room, or you didn't think about it clearly enough, and it just doesn't look great. But the magic of Cloyd is that he still keeps everything structured, and he's sometimes consistent with how these overlaps work. Like patterns like this, it doesn't matter that they overlap because it creates one organized structure that you can clearly notice. And therefore, it's visually clear and it doesn't need to be changed. And that sometimes is what's important when it comes to mapping. Just making sure everything is clear to the player when they're looking at it. But, what really matters most about this map, it's not... The rhythm's fine, it's not exceptional. What's exceptional is Cloyd's patterning and the unique strategies that he employs. He is a big fan of these parallel sliders. He uses them a lot, all the time. You don't actually see these very often, or when you do, they're usually on lower difficulties, because it's somewhat simple. You know, there's just a line, you tap in a line, but what they do, excuse me. But what they do is they separate it from the circles, which are used here often and a lot, and they're used as like a textural marker. That it separates the different types of sounds, because this is like a very complex song, like sound-wise. There's a lot of unique sounds throughout it, and you want to be able to differentiate them. And he does that both through like the types of objects he uses and the patterning as well. You see that, like, it's usually like organizing stuff together, or or previously mentioned, like different slider axes. Regardless of that, what matters more than that is how these objects work together. And Cloyd is no slouch at that. Like, you get this transition into the symmetrical pattern, and then this wraps around the end of symmetrical pattern, and then that gives you an excuse to move away, and then you get this sort of like curve progression, and you can just see this throughout the whole map. There's always something connecting everything together. Like that triangle pattern, my god. But it really is the consistency of this, just the unrelenting consistency of how he represents the song and making sure everything really is connected. That is what takes this from like an above average drum and bass map into an all-time classic. This might be sort of an irrelevant stat to some people, but this was extremely like. All I'm gonna say is just it's very highly critically placed. That's all you need to know about it. And
a lot of mappers think this map is like one of the maps of all time. If there's a top 100 map list, this is on it. If there's a top 50 map list, this is on it. It is one of the maps of all time. And for good reason. Alright.
Yep.
You done?
It's just... Yep. It really is just 6 minutes of continuous greatness.
It's like, and this is like, I don't know who made this saying, but it is one of my favorite sayings all time. A perfect map is just 100 perfect patterns. And that's what it is. This is what this map is the closest to. If I was to think of of that saying in map form, this is one of the maps that comes to mind. Just perfect execution the whole way through, and for its time as well. Crazy. We're gonna move on to YFBMP, and I can't remember the mod slot, but I just remember the maps. And
it's Nomad 1.
I need to remember what the map is called now. This is the hardest part. Oh my god.
Yeah. It's right
Thank you. Yep. Do you wanna introduce?
Hey, where's the diff?
What?
Scroll down.
Sorry.
No, he's not gonna be the creator.
Yeah, no. It still does the GDs.
Really? It doesn't.
Least got 6WC stream,
guys.
guys.
Name again. Oh my god. Yahoo. There we go.
Oh my god, guys. Alright, we're here now. I'll let you introduce YF, and then I'll talk about this map.
Okay, YF, he's part of the modern Chinese scene, which is, it retains influence from the old Chinese scene, but it's more boundary pushing. It's got some more unorthodox patterning style, but it's still pretty rigid and visually clean. And there's usually some sort of unifying backbone or theme or concept behind most of these maps that keeps things interesting. And YF is part of the original crop of Chinese greats and built on their previous work. No, he was inspired by the original crop, not that he was part of it. He started ranking maps all the way back in 2013, but he didn't start making waves until 2016, and it took another year until 2017 when they made their Pending Cup number 5 winning entry that we've picked for the No 1 slot, which is this map, Byakuya Gensotan. Now you can start talking about the B map.
I'm talking to all of the quote-unquote experienced mappers in the chat right now, or any VOD watchers. Guys, if you want to find a way to bring your maps from here to even higher, and you're interested in the field of progression, this is one of my all-time picks for one of the most brilliantly executed maps where the primary focus is progression. Now, this is a Chinese map. We're in the late era of modern Chinese mapping now, and the one big consistent thing that is carried through for Chinese mappers is the fact that, just like Hollowings, it's a very conceptually heavy style. Each map tries to carry a certain concept. This concept in particular, obviously in its like visual patterning and whatever, but it's carried by its progression. It has this big, grandiose idea of this visual identity that I have never seen in a map before, and still haven't really seen to this level in any other modern map. This map was made in 2017, 2016, so this was in between Noble and in between Mirages here. I still have not seen a map, like, visually this distinct ever, apart from this. But it's not only that he's built this really creative, really unorthodox visual identity in the final Ki, and this is a very short map, short but sweet, but just like Hollowings, it's constantly hinted at throughout the entirety of the first 2/3 of the map. Whether that be, in the visuals or in the way that things are structurally connected to each other, this same kind of like curved slider relations that you see everywhere, the way these relate to each other and forms a symmetry with this line concept as well. It's like he's constantly trying to scream at the player, this is coming up, this is the big thing, this is the visual identity at the end of my map. It's like, it is... A lot of people try progression, a lot of people have this big grand idea, like somewhere in the map, in this case it's the end, and a lot of people try to progress it very well in the elements leading up to it, but a lot of people fall short of it because it's just something that needs to be executed well. And God, this map just does it so well, consistently in the verses, doesn't miss a beat at all. Not only is it just such a fun map to play, but it's also... it doesn't get distracted. It is consistently trying to show you what is coming up. It is the biggest anime fucking foreshadowing map you will ever play in your life. Just executed so well. I bloody love it. It is one of my all-time inspirations. Yeah. I don't know. What do you want to add, Quantum?
I really don't have much to add. You did a great job describing why the map hits, but I think one thing to point out is it's not just the visual style itself, but the execution of it as well. There's no errant relation. Everything is super clear. Even if you go to the intro, like the first 15 seconds, if I could do that. Like, you're already getting these very complex ideas, and they're all acted upon incredibly well. And it's just so much to take in at once. And it's just done incredibly well. YF is just known for being an insanely good patterner and coming up with such unique stuff, and really it's no surprise.
Patterns, even in their modern maps, my god, he's still the GOAT. Yeah. Still so good. One of my all-time inspirations. Yeah. Are we all good? We good to move on?
I think that covers everything for this, man.
Because, my god, I wish Zero PP was here. He actually planned to be helping me out in this era, but unfortunately he had to do something. What was it? Tag tech, guys.
Oh, whoa. No,
What?
we're doing
Wait, did I miss something?
Feel My Conscience first.
Oh, sorry.
It's alright, no worries. But before we can get
Alright,
to
there we
tag
go.
tech, we need to get into regular tech first.
Guys, what
you know-
happened in the period after Hollow Wings made Not Shell? What happened
People
after
need
the
more
early
interesting
innovators? What happened after Neuronecia?
Players started getting... mappers started getting inspired by it. And it's trying to create more unique maps on similar songs. And that's how you get some of the first, like, modern recognizable tech maps. You get them from mappers like Professional Box and By Far. And you get, like, iconic maps like Amber and Boogie and Living Color. That's another really important one.
I mean, I've got my notes here. I can actually talk about this topic because I wrote about it. But essentially, what modern tech is doing is it's building off of the previous generation of tech maps, and the older generation of tech maps being, you know, people like Skystar, people like Nold. You'll recognize people like Professional Box and By Far, who basically took the really early experimental stuff like Neuronecia and kind of expanded it, made it a bit more clean looking. But it's still, they're people that are like, it's hard to do because it's like high SV visuals were never really something that have been played around with, except in the case of Not Shell. Except Not Shell is kind of still a very messy map altogether. There was a period of time where in early tech, people like Professional Box, people like By Far, basically cleaned up the tech style a little bit from Neuronecia. And then flash a few years later, we're at this stage with Pocket. And this style of modern tech was pushed and refined even further from older generations. Visual styles, and you can see it here, they became more elegant and perfected visually. Everything's a lot cleaner while still serving the gameplay needs. Like, they're still actively benefiting the song in such an incredible way, and this is just a map that's so specific to it. This is one of the sliders of all time. Oh my god. I pull out my favorite slider and then he pulls this out and I'm like, shit. It's like that scene from American Psycho. Look, this pursuit of still trying to either perfect tech visually or really take it on the edgiest it possibly can be with tag tech with Zero PP continues to this day. What was once considered impossible or controversial to do in the case of Not Shell has now become normalized, allowing for even more extreme innovators. And this era represents the maturation of these concept-based mapping, like, ideas, where technical innovation serves artistic vision rather than just pure experimentation. You've got people like Raruchi, and oh my god, everyone knows Raruchi, even as a player, but as a mapper, I can talk about Raruchi for hours. I'm not going to. All of his maps are too hard for our pool. Anyway, Neil Perry, IG, and Pocket. Pocket is the person who made this map. They basically achieved this really close to perfect balance between complexity and clarity. They gained enough reputation that they could pursue this pure artistic vision without, like, needing to worry about getting ranked. Like Raruchi's maps, for example, 99% of them are graveyarded. A few of them are loved. He doesn't really care about that. He's only chasing that artistic feeling of just representing a song, even without a leaderboard. He doesn't care about getting a leaderboard on it or getting it ranked. They think that it gets enough exposure as it is. Even this map, for instance, was only loved last year. In fact, when in map, because this is a tiebreaker in my previous tournament map, we pulled this before it got loved. We were originally going to have this as a graveyarded tech map because that's the reality of this era. Most tech maps of this caliber and of this kind of expertise, they don't push to get it ranked. They typically don't really care about all the glamour about getting a leaderboard. They just push it out there and let players experience it whether they find it or not. And it's this shift from experimental risk takers who fought for acceptance to recognize artists who established new standards of tech mapping, like, to then these people who just don't really care about that kind of stuff anymore. Yeah. That's pretty much this era of modern tech that we're in. I can talk about tag tech when we get up to it a little bit, but that's the backstory of this map.
Now we can talk about this map specifically. Pocket has been perfecting his style since 2018. He's always been an ideas-motivated mapper, and this map is no exception.
Oh my god, I was gonna highlight that, you dick. Hang on, give me my mouse back.
Right.
Give me my mouse back.
Okay.
Where is it? Where did you hide it? Where were you hiding it from me? Quantum! Oh, here it is, here it is, here it is. Oh my god. Please. When will I ever learn how to make visuals like this, man? Oh, what the hell? Oh, dude. It's one of the it's one of the most like incredible modern tech maps of all time. There's reasoning for it. Like, you can even see it. You don't even have to have like a mapping bone in your body to understand how amazingly well structured, how everything connects to each other, everything's got a purpose, and it just looks so awesome. I don't see this kind of stuff in modern tech. People aren't this experimental with, while keeping it obviously very clean looking, but keeping it interesting to the eye and still coming up with new concepts and new ideas. I remember when I first showed this map to Gam, host of 6WC. Hi Gam, if you're watching. Gam was shocked at the way Pocket represented, I can't remember what section it was like this breakdown section. He described it like he has never seen a tech mapper like represent this genre of tech music in the way that they did, and it's just so incredibly fun to play. All right, you wanted to go here, sorry.
I just wanted to show the intro because the idea in it's pretty clear. And there are ideas in every single section, just like that part you highlighted, just like this intro. And
I think
everywhere
I gotta
else
highlight this.
has
I think
its
it's time
own
to.
idea.
I think I should highlight it actually.
Okay, you do it. You do
I'm
it.
taking back mouse control, Quantum. Guys, come on, man. Oh, dude, it just keeps on going. I've never seen someone try this concept and have it actually fun to play. Even James Jans tried it and it wasn't really that fun to play, but my god. Oh, sorry, go on, Quantum.
Yeah, I'm just gonna highlight even more of the absurd ideas in this map. You saw it last time, but every single time there's a build-up, it like focuses on these circles and like some sort of geometric arrangement, and then not geometric, symmetric. And then, you know, the tech sections, they're not everyone has to have a unique style. The unique style is that they are the tech sections, and they have all these complex relations, and like these cool sliders, and even the non-cool sliders are just tied in incredibly well. And if we go like to the hardcore section, right after that build-up,
this is the section Gavin was talking about as well, yeah.
But even with just straight sliders, you're able to pattern incredibly well. It's just like having the ingenuity to do it and still make the gameplay interesting as well. It's just, it takes a lot of skill and talent to do this.
I'm gonna say, like, the one thing Pocket also, like, really focuses on in his tech maps is how well things flow. Because a lot of tech mappers nowadays, what they do is they really focus on the visual aspect and like the texturing aspect of like modern tech mapping and whatever. But a lot of them, they don't care about how things flow and how the movement works from slider head to slider tail, from one slider to another, from one hit object to another. This is one thing that Pocket does especially well. Everything flows so creamily, like it's so creamy, so milky. It's so clean and like feels good to play. Everything flows into each other. You've got the anti-clockwise movement here, and then it like you go up and then have this leads to this slider head here. It's just guiding you on where to go, and it's going back around it, and then just common movement emphasis. Oh god. Guys, tech mappers, any tech mappers any tech mappers in the stream, any tech mappers in the VODs channel right now. If you want to study a good tech map, this is it. This is it. Amethystus, are you watching? This is a good map to study. My god.
Oh my god.
This is where it's at.
You did not need that call out, bro.
That's like the only tech mapper I know that does like tournament customs.
Oh my god.
Who else does them? I actually don't know.
We need to take you on a field trip after
That
after
wasn't
you're
a
done with
call
this
out. Like
project.
Amethystus is literally the only 6-digit tech mapper I know. I don't know any other one.
Okay.
I don't know what
To be
you're
fair, there aren't
thinking.
that many.
There really aren't. That's the thing, guys. If you want to get into tech mapping, just on the topic, great map to study, guys. Seriously.
Well, honestly, I would stick to like simpler tech maps to study first, and then go up to this. But yeah.
Wow. What a slider. Yeah.
Just excellent mapping. And that's
Look.
what we're here for.
What are we on to now? Are we on to tag?
We're on to freeform next.
Oh! Unencapsulate? Guys.
It's
Oh,
Capulet, not Capulate.
Sorry. I get confused a lot. Unencapsulate, guys. There was an era around 2018, I think, where 2017, 2018, where it was oh, I love this song. What a great song. Where I'm gonna do the top diff for now, then we're gonna go to the actual diff that we've got in our in our set in our pool. There was a period around 2018, 2019 where this idea crystallized into prominence, and it kind of appeared every once in a while. It appeared in a lot of Chinese maps. It appeared in a lot of like earlier experimental styles, but it didn't crystallize until around when Mirage released here. I think that was like the one of the like times. There's a guy you may know, Undead Capulet, who basically pioneered this idea of what a lot of people call movement mapping. I call it movement mapping, other people call it freeform. And what freeform is it operates on this physical response theory, aka movement should match musical sensation, rather than focusing entirely on structure and focusing on having very clean, nice angled jumps like Sotarks, 40-degree angles that are like, you know, very easy to play and not uncomfortable at all. Movement should match musical sensation, and it should be like choreographic in its nature. It's like choreographing a dance of cursor movement in the way when you're playing a map and you follow it, having your cursor actually move in the way that the song represents it. It is another more deeply rooted form of song representation that just modern vanilla styles aren't able to replicate as close, because they're stuck on this like rules book and stuck on this like they just because of like how limiting it is and how many rules they have to follow. If you get rid of those rules, and this is what I say to a lot of freeform mappers, as soon as you ditch visual structure, you then get to focus on other smaller details like movement. Because obviously, if you don't have your visuals to show for it, this map obviously does have some pretty clean visuals, but other freeform maps don't. If you ditch your visuals, you have to be able to prove that your map is amazing in other areas. And my god, does this map do it well? Like, how can I talk about this even more? Like, a player experience, it's a player experience that focuses on, like, rather than just visual aesthetics, it's the, it's one of my favorite styles, and I'm like at a loss for words to describe it. Like, they're called movement maps because the movement while playing is what typically is praised within them. Undead Capsula, the person that we're looking at right now, he is the primary pioneer in this new era of freeform, less visually coded maps and more movement coded maps around this 2018 era. Obviously there's Cherry, you might know them, and there's Boar, but Undead Capsulate is the one that was able to achieve this ranked status for the first time for these kinds of maps. And before this, no one would have really thought that these types of maps can get ranked because, I mean, you can only imagine it. Look at these visuals. They're like, how does this connect to each other at all? It kind of doesn't. It's a free-flowing line, but where it matters is how your cursor moves along with it. You feel the song. The whole point in these movement-focused maps is it's like the approach is breaking aesthetic conventions and creating unconventional visuals that prioritize that cursor flow over visual appeal. And, you know, even today, like, community reception remains highly polarized, and, you know, I once saw on a forum that someone called it the flat earth of Osu. And another guy, I've written this down, I'm gonna have it in the video. Another guy said that freeform mapping is an excuse to map ugly things, saying that it has better movement. And my god, they couldn't be more wrong, because as soon as you ditch these rules in place for how your map should visually look, you can tap into things that are more deeply rooted in movement and cursor feel and how you connect to the song in other ways. It's one of my favorite styles. I love freeform. I absolutely adore it. And the reason why we actually don't have the top diff, I mean, obviously it's 6.1 stars, but Ariel has probably made one of my favorite GDs of all time because he perfectly captures what the top diff is doing. It's the exact same concept in its freeformy nature, but executed to the same level and extent in how it's closely representing Drake's shitty vocals. It's like... Also, obviously, one thing that I have to describe about Under the Capsulet is he also has this gimmick in this map and in a lot of his other maps of having a breakdown section that is an absolute contrast. It's having this one level of, and this is why it's absolutely unpullable and we couldn't get it in map, but it's having this really simple, really easy amount of difficulty for like 80% of the map, and then having this difficulty spike, which isn't just like, you know, a difficulty spike for no reason, but it's really bringing out the chorus of the song. It's like a difficulty spike doesn't have to be something that's just careless. It can be something that can adequately represent the song even better. And in this case, my god, it brings out the breakdown in this song so much more than it would have if it was the same difficulty the whole time. I'm actually, every time I play this map, every time Rai plays this map, we are excited to play it because we wait for this section. It's like you're listening to a song, like there's obviously a new Miley Cyrus album, you should listen to it, but there's one song in this Miley Cyrus album where it's like 4 minutes of building up to the bridge, and the bridge is loud and bombastic, and that is exactly what this song is, and it's such a climax. It is such a release of energy that you build up throughout the entire map. Sorry, onto Ariel. Ariel, best GD ever made. It literally just captures the exact same thing in an easier way. Honestly, if you told me, if you didn't tell me what map and mapped what diff, I wouldn't be able to tell. It is so similar. The exact same concept and still executed really well with the exact same reasoning, with the exact same gimmick of the diff spike and everything. It's good. It's bloody good.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, but at the time, Arrow was heavily influenced by Undead Capulet, and it shows. You can just see it in how well the movement is designed, and like there's still some amount of visual organization, but it's not like overpowering. That never takes the stage over the movement, over the feeling that they want you to have.
It's bringing up another form of representation to be the main highlight. Because all the time with vanilla maps, you see that the visuals are the main key takeaway of the identity of a map. But when you bring that down, and I say this to a lot of freeform mappers when they send in their maps for me to look at, if you ditch your visuals, you better pray to God that your movement's just as good, if not better. That's got to be the heart of your map if you ditch it. Anything else to add, Quantum?
Not 1 second.
I really hope you guys played this map. It is such a fun map to play. I don't even like Drake too much, but my god, it's just jammy. It just feels like a jam to play, man.
Yeah, that really is it. That's the key point. And even after the breakdown, you get this last final part. It's like it's just it's a come down. It's a come down from
And
the
it feels
peak of
like
the
a
breakdown.
conclusion. Like, immediately after the breakdown, it just feels like a conclusion to the map. Like, you've just gone through a whole adventure. And then you see the end, you see the light at the end of it.
Exactly.
Is
And
this kind of
I
mapping
don't
that
think
just-
we have.
yeah.
I don't think we have much else to say.
No,
Do you know what map's next?
all yours.
Oh god, not this map. Our next map is no. Our next map is
Am I
no
wrong
mod
again?
5.
Oh my god.
Hokori Yuki.
Huh?
Hokori.
See, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my guys, how do you, this is exactly what I was talking about before, okay? You have an incredibly mundane rhythm. How do you make this fun and interesting to play? How do you do it? And how do you do it when you have this incredibly boring, mundane song, you make it fun to play, and you ditch visuals? It's another freeform map, guys. Now, this one's a lot later. This came out in 2023. It's made by Silva. Silva is this Israeli mapper that, like, he's a little bit like YF. He's very conceptual in all of the maps that he makes. This is obviously one of those conceptual maps where he went completely freeform, got this incredible song on a 9/8 time signature, but went all in, like, all of his chips into movement. Because you gotta get away with this really boring beat. And it's so fun to play.
While we're waiting for the song to pick up, first of all, it was actually mapped in 2021 and ranked in 2022. And then second of all, the song is actually in 9.4, but the game doesn't support that, so he had to set it to 9.8. Or is it the other way around? I forgot. Whatever. Either way, now the song's picking up. We're starting to get this very. It's a somewhat complex rhythm for an Osu beat map. It is,
but it's the same thing the whole time. Like, it doesn't ever change. That can be alright for like a 2-minute, 3-minute map, but when you have a 5 to 6 minute map, you've got to have some variety. How do you introduce that variety, Quantum? How do you do it?
Movement!
Movement, guys! Have some interesting bloody movement. It's not that hard. Oh, this is so fun to play. You have this entire build-up of this continuous linear movement the whole way, like it's going side to side a little bit, but you're still going in one continuous line. That line is never broken throughout this whole section. You have this little gimmick section, but it's still doing the same line thing, right? But then, chorus comes, what do, guys? You break it! You completely break it and have movement contrast, just like in Mirage's here. This time it is, like, blatantly in your face. And you notice it. That's a new section altogether. And it's like not only such a really interesting, like, I've never seen visuals done like this in a freeform map, like having a bunch of different sliders arranged in like an ascending line that's going back and forth along each other, but having this entire section here essentially building up for them to like slap you in your face and say, this is the new normal that you're going to experience now in this Ki. And we're not even into like the vocals. Oh, it is such an interesting, fun, modern map. And then obviously with this back and forth section and this free-flowing wavy section, you get the actual main visual style of Outside of the Map, where it combines these two elements. You've got the waviness, you've got the back and forths, but it's going back in that line. And then obviously in each sequence break you have, new visuals to accompany it with like, the red anchors. You don't need to rely on an obnoxious beat to make your map fun, even if the beat is the exact same. If you have not only just differentiating patterns, differentiating visual ideas, but differing movement, it can make such a massive difference in your mapping. Movement is it is one of my favorite forms of expression of mapping. It can really bring out such an incredible soul out of your map like no other map can, because not a lot of people focus on it. And that's the reality of movement mapping. I have a mate who's currently making the I'm not gonna name them, one of the most boring maps ever, normal jump slop, and they said, how can I make my maps more interesting? How can I learn new techniques on how to do it better? And every time I tell them, go down the freeform route, see what you can find, go down that rabbit hole, because you might find different ways to develop your ideas. And there is a map coming up which combines the idea of movement into a normal aim map. And it is one of the best maps of all time, and we'll get to it in a bit. But man, this is just one of the most fun maps in the pool. For all of us. For Ryan, for me, for a lot of our playtesters in map, which unfortunately we weren't actually able to use it, but it is what it is. There's just certain hints of like, hey, look, this is a neat idea. Oh, and then the line, then combining it back, and then when the vocals do this thing and this inflection, and it goes, oh.
Now, I'll be completely honest. So some of these things are like, you notice them, but they're not like easy to point out. They're a little subtle. But you get some more obvious ideas later on in the map that we're gonna see.
Every time I look at this map in the editor, I smile, dude. I'm smiling right now. It's just like, it's such a fun, quirky map, and it's movement done right. And it's interesting. You see these other takes, like the early Russian style, and how they tried to make a song less boring by introducing more like slightly additive rhythm, or make a song less boring by introducing a bit of like complex hit sounding. But then there's now that we're in the modern era, there's just so many more other modern interpretations of how to do that. We've got Not Like Us, and we've got Sophie, the Sophie Nothing More to Say map, which we'll get to in a bit. Even when you're handed the most simple song, there's still so much you can do with it that a lot of people don't even realize. And really, you should look to these maps for inspiration. Alright, you go, Quantum. I gotta stop. Oh, this is like the most yapping I've done.
I'm gonna skip straight to the most interesting part to me. Like, you get the...
Woo, baby.
New rhythm! New idea, baby! Look at these towers!
And it's like, it's spaced across the playfield. It's going left to right.
Yeah, and when you have actual combo colors enabled, these are all the same color. They all reflect the same phrase.
Did I forget to do that? Oh,
yeah.
Damn. Sorry, no, hang on. For the map. Just for the map. Just for the map. Just for the map. Oh, my God. Sorry, we have to. We have to.
Is that the right setting? That is? Okay. And then when it resets, it goes back to the left. And then in the next section, it distinguishes the vocals, and then it goes back to the idea, and it just goes back and forth. And so does the movement. But even this idea, it starts to fade, the intensity decreases. You notice the spacing it starts to get smaller and smaller towards the end. Right now, it's very noticeable.
Guys,
and then you just get this final idea.
What's it building up to, guys? You notice it, like they ditched the concept, the spacing, like it's slowly getting more cramped. You slowly start to feel more claustrophobic. It's like it's putting you in this trance state, right? And that's what the song is. It's a very trance-like song. And then you notice it. It's like we're building up to something. Everything's getting quieter. Everything's getting more shallow. And then what happens? What happens, guys? Oh! Oh my God. And as I discussed before with Basara, it's like dynamic range in music. You have your quieter parts, which makes the louder parts just feel so much more loud and impactful, and just because this is the last key eye of the map, it's just so much more important to have this be the key takeaway of your map that you've led up to the whole time, with your lines, with your visual style, incorporating all the elements that you've introduced throughout the maps, like the ascending lines, the movement, the back and forths, and then introducing this new flowing wave as like saying goodbye to you because the map's ending. Oh, there's so much charm in this map. And it's so much more than just a silly time signature map. It's just got such a heart that I haven't really seen a lot of other maps tap into as well as Silver does in this instance. What a map. What a map. Alright.
And our next map... No, I don't really. But our next map also deals with progression, but in a slightly different sort of way.
What is it?
It is...
I don't have a screen.
It's a collab between Schoolboy, Tadame, and Amelia.
God.
That will be our No Mod 6 pick. Nothing more to say. By
Rest
Sophie.
In peace, Sophie.
Rest in peace.
As I said before, I've got my few favorites from the idea of progression. Now, this is a song by the great late Sophie that has an incredibly mundane, and it's probably the most mundane beat in our entire pool, and one of the most mundane song beats and songs in the ranked section for this kind of difficulty. Now let's pose the question again. We have this incredibly boring beat. How can we make this map so much more fun and enjoyable? Not with freeform this time. I mean, it's kind of freeform in certain areas, but more clean. How do we do it? You have a lot of different cards you can play at this point. And what Schoolboy, Amelia, and I'm trying to remember everyone's names now, Tadame did, was they tapped into progression once again. Now, I've got my favorite progression maps, and the YF map is definitely one of those examples of how to have this short and sweet, perfectly executed progression map. But this map does it a bit differently. What you have is 3 different sections. One big Schoolboy section in the middle, one early Tadame section, and you can very noticeably notice their style, and then one very obvious Amelia section. I'm kind of spoiling the map, but if you split up this song into certain key areas, but then have all of these different ideas, and then show progression on it. It's not just one idea like the YF map we had before, where it was the big, grandiose visual identity at the end of the chorus, but it's all of these little, smaller ideas that are littered in the map, and that are built upon later. It's like...
you have ideas at a time, and you play with that idea for a while, and just when you're about to get bored of it, you're like, okay, this is getting a bit stale. Bam! New idea. Vertical stacking.
But the thing about it is it's not them littering around ideas and not doing anything with it later. Every single thing that they put down onto paper that isn't some filler section like this is an idea that is then touched on later. And it doesn't even have to be with the same mapper, whereas Tadame had this one idea of having these, kind of 2/3 half circles, and then Amelia, with his signature style, brings them out in full force later on in the map. It's these callbacks of this thing that they introduce later on, then building on it later. This middle section kind of serves as I don't know how to describe this without showing you a visual or a graph about it, but it's like the more closer you are to the middle of the map, the faster certain progressions appear, but the further away you are from the middle of the map, they then appear later in the map. But it's just it's this really cool idea and concept of it's this display of all these different ideas and then doing this incredible progression on those ideas so that they're not just littered out for no reason. Introducing them earlier, then bringing them out in full force later, but that's not all about this map that makes it incredible. The thing about this is it's mapped by Schoolboy, it's mapped by Amelia, and it's mapped by Tadame. These are some of the most well-respected, established, most I'm like probably not Schoolboy to be honest, but but Tadame and Amelia are some of the most like consistently amazing mappers who are able to just execute things amazingly. And in this map, everything is in tip-top shape. Everything has just such perfect execution. Sometimes the schoolboy section doesn't have the cleanest of ideas, but my god,
But
in
the
this map do they have some.
Even the execution on these simpler parts is still done very well. Lots of clean patterns. It never feels like anything's like truly out of place. It's still all cohesive at the end of the day. Like, you get this vertical, like, vertical contrasted with horizontal slider movement. Like, even, like, basic stuff like this is just very good.
And I think there's just some
to this needle section.
And as I said about in the middle section, it's this concept of having things closer to the middle just directly relating to each other, whereas further away they relate later on. And obviously, as we are in the middle section, this is just one section where this is how it directly relates to each other. It's in its very moment, because you can't really do it later on, it's in the middle of the map. It relates in the very moment. This is the one time where Schoolboy just goes all out and does like some random shit, because there's no point later on in the map to actually progress on them. But as we move
because
further
this is
away
actually
from
like
this,
one actually unique moment in the song.
yeah.
But even then, it still repeats itself a dozen times. And
this is such a neat concept. Like, progression, early on. We got to do this right after because it's the middle of the map, right? We throw this in. How are we going to build upon this later? Guys, how do we do it? Think about it. Ascending up the playfield, dude. And then having these sliders in the middle of it. And then adding these little sections on for texture as well. Building on this idea and then just getting it bigger and bigger and bigger. And this was obviously a section that appeared earlier on in Tadame's section, but, you know, another take on it with the clear, you know, visual style of Schoolboy.
it's getting more and more absurd each time.
And with the synth picking up, it's got to go bigger and bigger. This is a callback to the Tadame section earlier. It's like, oh. And it's just so fun to play. That's the best part.
And then, you know, the song calms down a bit. But we can get these smaller sliders, these smaller patterns in general too. But they still find ways to keep it interesting.
I resonate with the map,
distributing
like,
it across
yeah.
the screen.
Oh yeah. I resonate with it so much. It just reminds me of a lot of the times I'm in Northbridge. Like, oh, it just brings it out, man. It's just one of those maps that are such a great example of progression. It's one of the earliest maps that had this concept of introducing a bunch of ideas in one map, kind of like a modern arts gallery of different ideas, but then having them actually linked and not purposeless. Also being wonderfully executed. Schoolboy has another map of this. It's called Tree Frog? Is it?
Yeah, Tree Frog is a bit
I'm just gonna bring
different.
it up really quickly.
It's a lot more freeform.
Tree Frog is
just
is
a
a map that I
space.
don't have. Tree Frog is a map that kind of builds on this idea. It's unpullable from, you know, for this tournament. It's like 7 stars or whatever. But it's this same continuation of this idea that they introduced in the Sophie map. Because no one's ever done a map where they introduce all those ideas and then have them link up. People are now starting to do that a little bit more. I think I saw Fanzen do something similar in one of their recent maps, but this is now a new concept in the modern era that more people are trying to do. You're at the birth of it now, and that's neat. That is really neat when you start noticing this stuff. Anyways, what's next, Quantum?
Now we get into tag.
I've been itching for it, and the funny part is, I'm not even going to talk about it. Oh, you.
Oh, come on! Seriously?
Where is it? This is it, yeah.
That's
this is
it.
Alright. Guys,
Okay.
short and sweet. This came, if I remember right, this came really, like, quite earlier on.
It's somewhat early, yeah. It wasn't like the first wave. Let's talk about the origins of tag. Basically, you could trace all of like this quote-unquote style.
I'll talk about the origins, right? Just while the map's playing, I think I can do this. Look, tag, as the name suggests, it's named after graffiti tags. You know, due to its chaotic visual aesthetic, and tag tech mapping emerged as a kind of like this specialized branch of tech mapping that prioritizes these quite difficult to follow unorthodox sliders. And it's deliberate. It's really deliberate in that nature. They are hard to follow because they're trying to test more forms of slider aim than that of conventional modern tech. Like we saw with that pocket map, everything's clean, everything's easy and milky and smooth and watery flow. The movements just really tied into each other. This map is the opposite of that, where it's more chaotic and it's actively trying to test your aim in awkward ways. And this style crystallized like around 2021 to 2024, 2021 to 2024. And my god, this is, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, this is a really recent style. It only really popped out like less than 4 years ago when we had...
Yeah, it was literally invented in 2020.
It was invented in 2020, and it's just... It's kind of this response to a post-modern, like a post-Russian style. And I'm not going to bring it up on stream, but Marash went down this route of more freeformy kind of experimental stuff. And then we had people like Fracture Hawkins, who has collaborated with a lot of these tag mappers before, collaborated with 0PP, collaborated with Sharu, who's also on the collab of this map. But they kind of take this Fracture Hawkins style post-Russian style from Marash and then push it to this more boundary pushing like approach. It's like it's being accelerated. It was accelerated by 0PP and Sharu, and they transformed the style into this I'm sorry, I literally cannot concentrate with this fucking music. But they transformed it into this really distinct substyle, and you can recognize it in a lot of the tech maps and a lot of the tournaments you play now, where it's appearing as this visually chaotic tag style, like graffiti tag style of patterning that all of these people follow pretty much. And it operates on this like sophisticated patterning principle that's, you know, inherited from traditional tech mapping, where they utilize these complex relationships and precision where you wouldn't even notice it, right? It looks so chaotic in nature where you wouldn't actually notice that there are a lot of relations between these objects. I'm not too experienced in tag tech to actually tell you myself, but someone like 0PP, and I wish he was here, he would be able to actually tell you the theory behind the messy nature of this, because there's so much actual, there's so much you can link, there's so much theory to it in the way that things overlap, in the way that things connect to each other and are visually spaced out from each other, especially from the movement side where you're going one direction and then you're immediately forced to go in the opposite direction. It's also, as a lot of freeform styles are, a very movement-focused style. I don't know. There's so much. I'm not going to go into the full detail about the entire history of this very, very new style that's coming out and still being developed right now. Even people like Kokoyu, sorry, and other mappers you may recognize from the scene are still being actively contributing to this like new scene, and it is still moving today, and you should definitely keep an eye on it. I'll go into more detail about it in the video, but this is really neat. You're right now, to anyone watching, you are at the forefront of one of the newest styles in Osu. That's neat. I find that really neat. I don't know. What do you think, Quan, and what can you talk about?
One thing I just want to talk about is the patterning. It still has like certain principles that you can recognize from normal beat mapping, like even during the slow parts, you can see like the symmetry involved and like the curve progression, which you notice with like the small sliders. But what this style can really be condensed down to is you have these big, crazy sliders that usually represent really interesting or new textures in the music. At least that's that's what you see in the original maps of the style. They're usually for like really fucked up electronic music and like stuff kind of like this. And then what you get those big sliders. And then it's all about the glue connecting those big sliders together. There's lots of little sliders in between. So, most of the time, it's really hard to make two big sliders relate to each other because there's so many points of connection, so many ways you can do it, and there are just infinitely many ways to fuck it up. So what matters most is having those big sliders and then finding ways to connect to them and connect them to the rest of the map in some way, and that's what tag succeeds at.
It's like you know when you're at a lake and you stack all of those smooth rocks on top of each other in a way that makes it look like it's so unstable and that it's gonna like fall off if you even so like poke it or breathe on it, it'll all fall over. It's the same idea where it's this style that looks so incredibly complex and messy and not even connected to each other, but there's so many underlying things that make them all connect.
Exactly.
It's just a statement of its own, and I think it's definitely the only style that I can think of that actually follows that trait of being so incredibly complex and yet under the surface so incredibly structured and organized and rooted in theory, whether that be a brand new theory that, you know, hasn't been explored so far, that not a lot of mappers even know about. A lot of the vanilla mappers, a lot of the AIM mappers that you show this map to, they're not able to understand what makes this map click a lot of the time, even outside of like, you know, the normal visual spacing and whatnot. But it's like this underground business of what's acceptable and what's not. And as this becomes more and more open and more people know about it, you're going to see a lot more of this style in modern tech. But right now it's still in its early days. Even though it's 5 years past, even though you see this style a lot, we're not at that stage yet where a lot of mappers know how to replicate it just yet. That will change soon, but that's not the case yet. It requires a skill. It really does. Anyways, anything else to add, Quantum?
No, I've said all I need to say.
What's next, Quantum? I'm waiting for my map.
We've just got the 2 vanilla maps left.
My two maps. What do we got?
Are they yours?
What do we got? They are mine, right? Which one first, Quantum? Which one first? Is it Laughing Makes It Worse, or
it is Hidden 6, which is Laughing Makes It Worse.
Oh my god. Guys. How do you... I'm gonna open with this idea. How do you... Oh, what was the thing that I said for Silver? It was that comparison I made of someone who's so bored of their normal AIM style and they just want to add some juice to it. They want to make it more unique or make it feel more unique and more direct with the song. And how do you do that? And I told this one person that they should try out freeform and they should go down that path of trying to map in freeform so that they can bring out their other elements like movement into their maps. Once you go down that path, you go back to your original path of normal AIM mapping, and then you have this newfound knowledge of how to utilize movement in a way that brings out more in your map than what you'd already have beforehand. And Pishy is one person that comes to mind which is at the forefront of this process, and I think it started off with that one pup map that everyone bloody loves and that I can't remember the name of because I'm an idiot. Quantum, please help me out, Quantum.
Wait, which? By who?
The Pishy pup map. Am I really zoning that?
Scorpion Hill!
Everyone knows Scorpion Hill. If you haven't played Scorpion Hill, that goes to everyone in the VODs channel right now, everyone watching this stream. If you haven't played Pishy's diff of Scorpion Hill. Play it right now. Life-changing experience. But the thing about Pishy's mapping is that, and you see this in a lot of his maps, whether that be Scorpion Hill, whether that be Cold Weather from Glass Beach, whether that be Livin' La Vida Loca, which not even a lot of mappers know about, but that's one of the prime examples of how he uses movement in his maps. The thing about Laughing Makes It Worse is it's this idea of, it's more generalized. It's not like Mirash's here, where it's like very articulated movement and purposeful movement. This is purely intuitive movement, and it's this exact thing that that's intuitive in nature, where you've got all of these mappers online who absolutely adore and praise and love this map. I saw one guy say that he actually cried to this map while watching it in the editor, which is kind of wild. But a lot of these people don't actually understand why the map is so good. Quantum doesn't understand why the map is so good. You know it's good, but you don't know why it's good, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to explain. Like all the parts are correct, but you don't know
what makes it click. What makes it feel so close to the music that other maps don't. I know exactly what it is, and it is intuitive movement control. It is the purposeful stopping and starting motion of accentuating certain parts of the song, but not in a horizontal thinking way, as Basara did, but in a very, very vertically thinking way. Obviously, there's some moments where you build up to certain things, and that's vertical thinking in its nature. If I can find it, it's like, this section here. And then and then Pishy lets out the biggest jumps in the whole map. But in all of the filler in the map, the one thing that not a lot of people feel but not notice is the movement control, and how he's intuitively making the player's cursor go around so that it actually builds and follows the song in a way that brings you closer to it. And I unfortunately, I just don't have any patterns on me right now to directly show to you. I will have some in the video, but I'd have to actually go through the map and find it myself. But it's certain stuff like this, right? Where you have new bar right here on the 1, right? Brand new bar, new sequence altogether. That's bar number 1. And you do this for 1 bar, which is 1 straight movement. Even down to the next bar, where you've got this other movement, but then you break it up. It's kind of this x-axis, y-axis separation, but it's more free-flowing. It's not just up and down and left and right. It's angled. This is a direct 90-degree change in the movement. It's a stop and start. And this is going in a straight motion, and then it's going up and down, up and right. And big spacing, drastic spacing increase, but it's just like, I just have to show you in the video. It's not something I can very easily describe. Obviously, the map and the song is just so clean. It's so wonderfully executed, but it's this underlying motion of cursor movement and control that makes it all so clear. Like considering this is one big line, right? Going down, and then you immediately go from here to the left. That's a hard snap movement that interrupts this long flowing line. My god. And this whole section here where it's all in one linear pattern, even this isn't too accentuated in its movement and in its angle of attack, but then you've got this as one of the only jumps in this entire section, which goes back in on itself. And what he's doing here, I sound crazy right now, but he is purposefully picking when to be more direct with movement in places where it matters, and doing it consistently throughout the map. There isn't a single other spot in this whole filler section where he does this back and forth movement. Even here. And that's what makes it feel special, because it's always very careful, very articulate motion until you've got the key eyes and the choruses and the big parts of the music where you actually let the player experience what you've been limiting them to the whole time. And as we move into the verse, it's just like certain spacing increases which move on to the next bar, which bring it out. It's moving and flowing with the song just like Mirash's Here does. Oh my god, it's such an incredible map, but it's one of those maps where people just don't know how to describe it to you, don't know how to explain why it's good. It is to do with the movement, and I can promise you that, but that's just what it is. Like,
It's also just Pishy Fat's style of organization that's clear throughout the map,
yeah.
and it's just his ability to not falter at any moment, which is just not present in many mappers.
Nope. He's one of the most consistent mappers out there. That's just what he is. And although some of his maps can be very boring, I can say that. Like, my god, a lot of his Pierce the Veil maps are just some of the most boring maps I've ever played in my life. But it's certain stuff like this. In this whole 3-hour stream, we haven't brought up the idea of circular rotation and circular rotation movement. I was going to bring it up in Mirash's Here, but I didn't really have the time for that. But here's an idea, right? Where you have patterns which make your cursor kind of go around in circles. And what you can do is you can arrange patterns where you're forcing the player's cursor to move as a form of movement expression in a certain direction for a while, and then move it back. That's one thing that not a lot of mappers think about. It is a Pishy tutorial video, and it's a tutorial video that no one listens to, because you look at every jump map, you look at every vanilla aim map out there, the circular rotation, if you just pay attention to it, it's non-existent. Nobody is actively thinking about circular rotation. Now, what's Pishy doing here? You've got this, which is going in an anti-clockwise movement, and then new bar, you're going clockwise, and then you're going anti-clockwise for each bar, and it's going back on each other. Clockwise, and it's following what the vocals are doing. It's this do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And it just, you feel like you're there with the artist in your movement. And it's going back and forth. And this is back in its movement, and then you're back to the original thing where you're going anti-clockwise, clockwise, anti-clockwise, anti-clockwise, clockwise. And then you have this break where the drums start differing. And it's still kind of like this trippy motion where you're going bam, going back to it, but then they're forcing you to move back. You're dancing. You're actually fucking dancing to the song. There's no theory to this. No one's ever done a write-up on this. No one's ever really talked about it. It's just, you are dancing to the song. That's what this map is. It's these purposeful restraints of, like, look at this, like you're doing this back and forth motion, really back and forth motion, and then you have this Midwest emo guitar break, and it's this linear motion, and the drums break it up, but then it's going back, and it's just smooth, and you feel like you're flowing with the song. This is the kind of movement control that I'm talking about, and it's in many different forms in this map. But when you see it and when you feel it and you understand it, it's just incredible. It is an incredible feeling to watch in the editor, and it is an incredible feeling to play. I am not surprised people have cried while watching this map in the editor, because I don't think there is a single other map in our pool in the star range, in any of the adjacent star ranges around it, that are that close to the song, that they make you feel like you're there. And it's just movement. And I try and stress this enough as much as I can. Movement is one of the most, like, underlooked, one of the most, like, powerful things you can use in your maps. It is something that barely any mappers actually completely focus on. It is one of the things that Pishy actively focuses on, and it's no wonder why so many people adore Pishy's maps. So many players adore this map. Even Gam said this map is astonishing. This map is incredible as a tiebreaker, one of the best aim maps they've ever played, and it's all to do with movement and movement control. And As soon as someone is able to tap into this and replicate this exact style of intuitive movement control that Pishy does, they're going to be unstoppable. Because there isn't a single other mapper out there that is doing what Pishy is doing in his type of, like, in the way he controls his movement. And I'm going to be honest, it is something that I am studying every single day. It is something that I'm trying to replicate every single day, and it's just something I can't. I'm getting better at it, but it's just something that takes so much practice and so much attention.
Well, the thing is, what, in my opinion, the only way Pishy Fat knows how to do this stuff is from years and years of experience in the editor. Being able to fully understand these ideas and doing the same amount of analysis that he has done. It allows him to really understand and then utilize these ideas. And you know, you're not just gonna get that just from looking at this map. You gotta look at a billion different maps. You need to come up with ideas. It's not... It's a process. It's gonna take a while. And, you know, this applies for, like, every mapping journey, no matter what you're trying to do. You're not gonna get immediate results. You're not going to immediately look like your favorite mapper. It's gonna take time. You gotta find your own ideas. And in the end, it's just about expressing yourself and expressing what you want to onto your canvas, which is a song.
Well said. Well fucking said, Quantum. And yeah.
Pretty
I
good
can't
painting.
deny this is just something that this is a point in mapping, in vanilla mapping, that I want to be at so badly, so freaking badly. I have studied this map so much, and I think this is going to be the hardest part of the video for me, because we've got the baseline of the video script done. I haven't gone into detail about this map, and that's going to be the hardest part for me, because it's just instinctual. There's no real theory to it. There's a few things like circular rotation, there's a few things like movement contrast, but it is intuitive, and it's just something that nobody else is doing. And the crazy part about this, how long ago was this made? 2022, 2021?
I think it was 2021.
It has been 4 years, guys! Get your game up! Nobody's been able to beat this in 4 years? Come on, guys. It's right there. It is staring at you. It is begging to be understood, and no one's been able to sit down and do it. Crack the code. Analyze the shit out of this map.
If we can't explain it, then who else can? I'm not saying we're like the pioneer, like we're like goated or anything, but who can? We'll find out, I guess.
It's sitting there. Anyone who wants to I'm sure there's a movie saying I can use for this, but I'm not gonna do it. It's sitting there and it's waiting for you. Just pull the sword, man.
Okay.
Pull the sword out the rock.
One more map. Maybe we can get this under 2 hours.
Guys, oh, absolutely not. We're already hitting the 3-hour mark.
Oh, right. Fuck.
Yeah. Not this diff. Guys, if you don't know, and we're ending the stream, this is the point of the stream where everyone's like, guys, it's a map pool. You know what's gonna be in the map pool? It's gonna be a Kendrick Lamar map. No. No, the thing about Kendrick Lamar, and this is something I don't really understand in this game. Why is it that all of the great mappers in this game gravitate to Kendrick Lamar? I'm not even going to say like most great mappers have a great music taste. Absolutely not. The only people that I can really think have a good music taste that are great fucking mappers, maybe Scub. I wouldn't even say James Jan has a good music taste. He mapped Playboy Cardi. Like, there's something about the good, like the best mappers in the game gravitating to Kendrick Lamar as a medium for them to then experiment or just execute things super well. Scubs did it with like N95. James Jan, of course, is a Kendrick Lamar fanboy and maps every single one of his songs. And honestly, I could have listed any one of James Jan's Kendrick Lamar maps. I could have listed any one of of James Jan's non-Kendrick Lamar maps, right? But James Jan is my biggest inspiration right now, and it's not because of his style, it's not because of his patterning, his visuals, it's about the modern way he does additive rhythm. And I wouldn't even call it additive rhythm anymore. I would then go and call it kind of like Basara, it's kind of like improvised rhythm in a way. It's not to the Basara extent, but it is something that is absolutely littered throughout James Jan's style. And it's something that you never actually notice, because here's the thing about overmapping, right? You can overmap the rhythm of a song. If you go too far, people will notice it. It will not feel or play right. But the thing about what James Jan does is in every single one of his maps, he utilizes overmapping, he utilizes additive rhythm, he utilizes improvised rhythm to bring out the best in otherwise really boring songs. And just like, kind of like how Evil Elvis did it with adding a little bit of additive rhythm, but not too much, not going to the full extent of it, or other mappers trying to represent boring songs in other different ways. The thing about hip-hop is the fact that it is a very mellow beat most of the time. Sometimes you have little hi-hat things that happen in the, that are begging for you to texture it, but a lot of the time it is a very boring beat. Not Like Us is one of the simplest beats of West Coast. It is just a very simple beat. How do you turn a very simple beat into something fun to play? And James, this is just the perfect thing for James Jan, because my god, he can turn anything, add some crazy improvised rhythm and just make it so much more fun to play. Here's the thing, let me find a place where I can actually show you like him at his best, right? Right after the pussy slider. It feels very textured, right? Like that's what it feels like. It feels like it's fun to play. It even looks like it's fun to play, right? All of these triples, all of these like repeat sliders, and these 1/4 kick sliders, which add texture, and that's what I like to call texture to your rhythm. But here's the thing, it feels and looks very complicated. It makes the song feel and look very complicated. But let me play it without the hit sounds.
Since 2009, I had this bitch jumping. You niggas will get a wedgie, be flipped over your boxes, or over your foe. The other vaginal option.
It is just so much simpler, and you never even notice it until you turn off the hit sounds or unless you look at a different diff. There's something that James Jan has been able to understand about rhythmic interpretation that no one else has. It's possibly because all he maps is hip-hop, and he's had to find that out. It's like throwing yourself into the deep end of the pool and then forcing yourself to swim. But this is one of his more modern maps, and it's just done so incredibly well. If I look at, no offense to Wee, I think this diff's fine, but it's nowhere near as good as James Jan's one, because you can't even compare. After watching James Jan's diff, it feels like there's less substance. It feels emptier. And using 1/3 as a way to simplify the beat because the vocals are doing it. You're focusing entirely on the vocals, but there's so much more going on, and there's so much more you can improvise. And that's just one section. He does this throughout the whole map, where he uses these really simple beats, right? Like, listen to this. It's simple. It is simple, but this is the key eye of the song. So this is the chorus, this is the big, this is where the map should be at its peak, but the beat is so simple. So what can you do? Because you want it to feel big, you want it to feel impressive, but there's not a lot of substance to work with. Most mappers would be too scared to go down the improvised rhythm route. But my god, James Jan does it every time. Now let's listen to this with hit sounds. That just feels... Oh my god. That just feels like so much more substance than there would have been if you were just listening to the song. Oh, dude. And it's something that you've got to understand. Like, if you were completely blind to this map and you've never seen it before, you go into the editor and you want a map not like us, you will I can promise you right now, you will struggle to find good improvised rhythm that not only works and doesn't overcomplicate the song, but works and fuses so well with it where it just adds substance and nothing more. This style that he has, it's kind of freeformy, it's kind of simple, but the best part about James Jan, whether it be his incredible visuals, his incredible jump structure, or just the movement of his maps, it's always in his approach to rhythm. That's why he's one of my he's one of my biggest inspirations. That's why I always look up to him. I always end up looking at his maps for inspiration because he just finds gold in something that you would have never expected to have it, you know? There's so much to look at, so much to study from his maps. Not Like Us is a great map to study for this kind of stuff. You need to look at Good Kid, you need to look at Mad City, look at, oh my god, look at Humble is a great example of how to turn an otherwise pretty simple beat to an incredible experience that just is so absolutely fun and full of substance. It's what he's amazing at. That's why a lot of mappers love him. Anyways, you go, Quantum.
I really don't have much to say about this map. It's just, it represents James Jan's evolution, because he has maps like this where he does a lot of concepts, he does a lot of interesting stuff, but I think this map is a good representation of how far he's been able to progress it, and him introducing new ideas to it, and not just doing the same old hits of like, oh, he follows the vocals and the drums? Wow, crazy. He actually adds stuff. He creates more interesting beat maps using the rhythmic tools he has at hand. That's all I really have to say about it.
I mean, the thing about this is I cannot name a single other person that does this. There are people who try to do it, there are people who do it in certain maps but not others, but there isn't a single person who's able to do it in pretty much every map they make and do it so consistently well. I shout on his Playboy Cardi song choice, but that map is incredible to play. And I hate that song. I absolutely hate that song, but I find myself playing it because it is such a fun and intuitive way to approach that song. I'll probably show it in the video, not on the stream, but look at James Jan maps, play James Jan maps. They're great. They're so much fun. And there's really no one else like him that's doing the stuff that he's doing. Absolutely not. Alright, anything else, Quantum, or are we able to pack this thing up?
I think we can end it here.
Well, ladies, gents, and NBs, you have been here. I don't even know if anyone's still sticking around. But 13 viewers, we dropped from 50. That's crazy. Look, everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching in the VODs channel, I hope you're able to learn something that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to before. If you've been watching, Zarelia's still here. Zarelia, if you... I hope you've been able to find something that you can be inspired by. Everyone watching, the video will be out at some point where we will go more into the, more in-depth of the analytical analysis parts of maps that we haven't really been able to touch on this stream, mostly because we're winging it, but
yeah,
there's more to come. We might even play it between intermissions, between matches, but anyways. That's it from us in the map side. Go out and make maps, go out and feel inspired, and just don't be afraid to try new techniques if you're doing the same thing over and over. Go out and feel inspired by something else. Anyways, let me see if there's another, if the alt channel's doing anything right now, because if not, I'll just end it here. They are. Alright, so we are going to raid, we're gonna raid Zarelia. Zarelia's playing right now. Sorry, Zarelia, I was just talking to you for no reason. Alright. I don't have perms to raid. I literally do not have perms to raid. Can I raid?
Can we just?
I can't raid.
we just-
Okay, everyone.
can't.
Oh,
Okay,
my,
just
oh
tell
my
them to
god.
go
hang
there.
on, hang on. No, whatever. Everyone, go to the alt channel. I will get it up right now. 1 second. I can't raid, so you're all gonna have to go through here. Go support Zorelia. I'm gonna spam this a few times. There you go. All right. This is good enough of a raid. Anyway, take care.
All right.
See you later, everyone.